Today, we're going to be taking a look at some FNAF fan games that grew into something much bigger than anyone could have expected. What started as simple fan projects eventually spawned massive communities, unforgettable characters, and legacies that lasted for years. Some of these practically became franchises of their own, so let's dive into them.
Juniors is the most unique FNAF fan game I've ever played, and I have played a lot of them. Really, I've quite literally built my entire career around playing FNAF games, and Juniors is 100% the most fun I've ever had playing any FNAF game ever designed. This video is here to go over everything I love about the game and the few things that I hate, because truly, I do not believe there is currently any FNAF fan game that does the formula better than Juniors. So let's waste no more time on the intro that nobody cares about and get into the best FNAF fan game ever made. Before we begin talking about Juniors, I want to tell a bit of a story, or I guess more of a fun fact. I actually wanted to avoid playing and reviewing Juniors for the longest time. I've been getting suggestions for it since my first ever FNAF video over a year ago, and I've always decided that I didn't want to touch it. Why? Because I used to have this really cringy way of thinking. If something is popular, it must be overrated type of mentality. After finally sitting down and playing through Juniors, seeing it completely blind for my first time ever, I will never in my life think like that ever again. This game truly has made me more passionate to create content more than any other game ever has. Set your expectations as high as you want, and I guarantee Juniors will still blow them out of the water. We play as an unnamed paranormal investigator. We're assigned with exploring the supernatural presence of the restaurant Juniors. As I'm sure you may have guessed, yes, this is the same Juniors that can be seen in the Midnight Motorist minigame from Pizzeria Simulator. We wake up in a place called the Barrens, which seems to be a limbo between life and death. Looking up, we can see what I assume to be our own brain, and we soon meet a character named Paul Bear. Throughout this game, we don't learn much about Paul Bear, but he is the only friend we have throughout the game. Paul Bear explains that there is an evil presence inside of the Juniors establishment, only ever referring to it as the Ghost. Eventually, we strike a deal with Paul Bear. He agrees to help us with our investigation of Juniors, and we agreed to help Paul Bear find freedom from the Ghost by defeating it in one way or another. With that, we head to bed and start our first night. Usually, the way I talk about nights in FNAF games is pretty basic. I bring up which threats are introduced, how to deal with them, and throw in a dick joke or something. However, Juniors does the entire FNAF formula so differently from any other FNAF game I've seen, so covering this is going to be a fun change of pace. To start, Juniors completely gets rid of the sit and survive style of gameplay that most other FNAF games have. The game still has the classic 6 nights, however, each night isn't completed once you've made it to an arbitrary time limit. Instead, similar to a game like Pizzeria Simulator, progression is based on finishing tasks. Except the key difference between the tasks in Pizzeria Simulator and the tasks in Juniors is that one of those games has super fun tasks that I look forward to doing, and the other game is fucking Pizzeria Simulator. But what exactly are the tasks in Juniors? I'm so glad you asked, because these tasks are the sole reason why this game is so amazing. Throughout the night, the ghost Paul Bear was telling us about will enter one of the animatronics at random. It's our job to watch the cameras for weird anomalies and figure out which animatronic is possessed. And each night, you will have to correctly identify where the ghost is more and more times. On night 1, you need to correctly identify the ghost 2 times, and with each subsequent night, that number goes up by 1. But before we really get into that, there's something else that this game does that I wasn't expecting. Typically in FNAF games, the animatronics will make their way to your office and try to attack you. This is actually not the case in Juniors. The animatronics will never come to your office. Well, at least not in the typical FNAF way, but I'll cover that in a minute. The tools at our disposal are pretty minimal. We have our cameras, control panel, and our repair room. Throughout the course of the night, if you check your control panel, you will be able to see the condition of each of the 6 animatronics. Yes, 6. You've got the main 4, with the addition of the marionette and balloon bitch, or as this game calls him, balloon baby. As the night progresses, the condition of each of these characters will decrease. If they ever go completely empty, they'll use your ass as sustenance and gobble it up. At any time, you can send one of the animatronics onto a conveyor belt that will bring the character to your repair room. Once inside the repair room, you can quickly fix them and send them back into the pizzeria. This will cause their condition to go back up to 100. However, you have to be careful, because if you send the possessed animatronic to your office, it's game over. Another thing to note is that you can't send more than one character to your repair room at a time. Moving on to the actual ghost hunting part of this game. As mentioned previously, there are 6 characters that the ghost can possess. Both at the start of the night and directly after identifying the possessed character, you will get a grace period where no animatronic is possessed. You should use that time to send the lowest conditioned animatronic to your office to be repaired. There are multiple different cues to tell you who the possessed animatronic is. It seems like throughout the nights, new clues are introduced. However, I cannot find a distinct list of what clues get introduced each night, so I'm going to be guessing based on my experience. If you know that I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. There are 2 clues that are introduced on night 1. The first one is pretty easy: camera flickering. When an animatronic is possessed, they have a chance to cause the camera that they are currently on to start flickering. The cameras by default flicker their lights, so this is pretty subtle, but if you look closely at an actual flickering camera, you'll be able to tell that the ghost is on it, because between the flickering, the cameras will have a brief period where they go black. That sounds pretty easy, I hear you saying, and while yes, it is, this is another part of the game that I think is super cool. There aren't an insane amount of cameras to look through, and it's very common that multiple characters will be visible on a camera at the same time. So this brings up the possible problem. If the cameras are flickering on a camera, but multiple characters are present, how do we figure out which of the animatronics is actually the possessed one? This right here, this conflict that you have to figure out, is the main reason why I love this game so much. It's such a simple problem, but the way you go about solving it can be different depending on your playstyle. This is honestly the coolest mechanic I've ever seen out of any FNAF game, and I don't think it's ever going to be beat. So, what was my strategy? Let's start with the hypothetical that we'll use throughout this video. Let's say we're looking at a camera that has Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy present on it. The camera is flickering, so we know that either Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, or Foxy are the possessed animatronic. The first thing I would do is either send Balloon Bitch or the marionette to the conveyor belt, since I know full well it can't be one of them. So I'd just pick whoever has lower condition. Then I would constantly keep my eye on all 4 animatronics on that camera until 1 or more of them left. Once they left, let's say for example Freddy and Chica leave, I would stay on the camera to see if the flickering persisted. If it did, then I'd know it can't be Freddy or Chica. Let's say Foxy left next and Bonnie stayed on the camera. If the lights stopped flickering, then I'd know for a fact it has to be Foxy. And if I really wanted to double check, I could find the camera where Foxy left to and see that the lights are still flickering. But as I've said, that is only 2 of the clues that are introduced on this night. What's the other? Handprints. I should mention that once the ghost possesses a character, only 1 of the clues will become present in that character until it is found. And from what I can tell, they never switch which clue they have until the ghost is found. Handprints are pretty simple. When a possessed character leaves a camera, they will leave a handprint behind on the lens of the camera. So let's go back to our hypothetical again. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy are all on 1 camera. Freddy and Chica leave, and after doing so, we spot a handprint on the lens. That means we now know that the ghost has to be in either Freddy or Chica. So we can send either Foxy, Bonnie, the marionette, or Balloon Bitch to the conveyor belt, and all that's left is to watch Freddy or Chica. Whoever we choose, we wait for them to leave a camera. If Chica leaves and a handprint isn't seen, that means the possessed character has to be Freddy. And with that, night 1 is in the bag. After the night, we head back to the Barrens and talk to Paul Bear again. He explains that he himself chooses to stay in the Barrens because the ghost won't go there. Pussy-ass ghost Paul Bear is afraid of another ghost. Don't question it. It's kind of like those people who are afraid of other people. What do we call those things? Oh, yeah, moderators. Anyways, night 2 time. Night 2 doesn't appear to add any new clues. However, I will take this time to talk about how Paul Bear can aid in our investigations throughout the night. If at any point you're confused on who the ghost may be hiding in, Once per night, you can go to the control panel and actually ask Paul Bear who he thinks it is. He'll be able to narrow it down to 2 characters. Do you need this to beat the Knights? No, but I do think it's kinda neat that it's available if you're struggling. I only ever used it once throughout my playthrough on accident because I didn't know that clicking on this would actually cause him to give me a hint. Also, if you want to watch my full playthrough, you can do so on my second channel, Dxtr Black. It's also on this night where I want to bring up the Marionette and Balloon Bitch. Since you can never actually see either of them on the cameras, you may be wondering how you're supposed to be able to tell if they are possessed. I'll talk about the Marionette later, so for now I'll talk about Balloon Bitch. His mechanic is actually incredibly simple, and I honestly think it's one of the weakest mechanics in the entire game. All you have to do to check if Balloon Bitch is possessed is look at your control panel. If his condition number is freaking the fuck out, he's possessed. If it's not, he's not. That's it. Again, I don't really think that this has a good reason for existing. Maybe the dev just wanted a 6th character so that there would be 3 on each side on the control panel, but I feel like it would have been much more interesting if you just allowed Balloon Bitch to be seen on the camera like the main 4. He could have been made to be a more challenging character. Since he's smaller than everyone else, having him hide in the cameras and be immune to the motion sensor could have been a super interesting challenge. But let me know what you guys think about Balloon Bitch in the comments. After completing night 2, we find a VHS tape. Watching it shows a claymation of Freddy carrying an animatronic limb up to a door. The door has a note on it that says, "Beware the mangle." Looking up, Freddy appears to see said mangle looming down on him, and the cutscene comes to a close. Heading back to the Barrens, we ask Paul Bear about what we saw on the tape. He says he believes that the ghost is trying to build itself a body in the form of the mangle, and that it's possessing the other characters to bring the parts to it. Appearing that we're now on a timer, we know that we have to do something, so we head to sleep and move on to night 3. Night 3 introduces one new clue that the characters can use: camera movement. This one is pretty simple. However, I should start by explaining how the cameras work a little bit more. Typically in FNAF games, the camera will slowly pan back and forth as you look at them. In Juniors, you have to manually move the cameras to see the full picture using WASD. The camera movement clue does exactly what you'd think. If you're moving the cameras, the ghost can cause it to jerk in a direction you're not moving it in. My camera got fucked a little bit, the weird control. I don't know if that was me fucking around or if that was the heathen. Whoa. My camera just fucking zipped. Using that, you can follow the exact same method as the flickering clue. However, the camera will not jerk if you aren't moving the cameras, so you'll need to get into the habit of doing that often. Although that really shouldn't be a problem since, again, you can't see the whole camera unless you move it. This is also the night where I want to talk about the Marionette and how she works. Just like Balloon Bitch, you can't see the Marionette on the cameras. However, you can hear her. You can tell which camera she is on by listening for the music box. If you hear it, then you know that the Marionette is on whichever camera you're looking at. Fundamentally, is this different from the 4 main characters? No. However, I do think it's a super fun addition to the formula, where if we were using our hypothetical again from earlier, let's imagine all 4 of the main characters are on a camera and the camera is jerking in a random direction when we move it. Then all 4 characters leave at the same time, but the camera is still somehow jerking. Then you notice that you've been hearing the music box the whole time and just weren't paying attention. Now you know that it has to be the Marionette. It's not that it's hard to figure out, but it may be something that slips your mind as you're so focused on trying to find the ghost. I love the Marionette in this game, and if you couldn't guess from my constant glaze, it's the best Marionette I've ever seen out of any FNAF game. After completing night 3, we find another tape. On it, we watch the ghost leave Freddy and move to Bonnie. Then see Bonnie carry another piece of the mangle to the secret door. This is another thing I really like about this game. Even though you can't feel it, you know both you and Paul Bear are in a race against the clock. As with every passing night, the mangle gets closer and closer to being completed. And you know that once it's finished, your chances of winning become slim to none. Heading back to the Barrens, Paul Bear isn't present. Climbing up a ladder, we find him in a tree looking out at the brain. We tell him that our investigation ends soon. Paul Bear mentions that the spirits know he's in the Barrens with us by now, and we devise a plan to break into the secret room. the basement, and get to the mangle before it's put together. Sharing a moment of solace together, we head back into the restaurant. Somehow, this game is actually making me care about a character, which is insane to say given the fact I'm talking about a FNAF game right now. But regardless, it's on to Night 4. Night 4 introduces the most ball-busting clue we've ever seen: camera malfunctions. This does exactly what you'd think. The possessed animatronic will cause a malfunction on whatever camera they are on. That means if we go back to our hypothetical, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and the marionette are all on the same camera. One of them becomes possessed, so we lose the ability to see that camera. Fuck. Continuing to watch the cameras, we hear the music box stop, but the malfunction continues. We now know that it can't be the marionette. All of a sudden, the camera pops back on, and all we can see is Bonnie. Well, now we know that it can't be Bonnie. Now we look around the cameras until we find the malfunctioning one again. As we look, we spot Foxy on a camera. We now know that the ghost is either Freddy or Chica. Oh fuck. You quickly check the control panel and see that Freddy and Chica are both at 15 stability. What are we to do? We don't have enough time to keep watching. So it is now our time to make a decision you will probably have to make at least once in your playthrough. Praying to the RNG gods that the ghost isn't in Freddy as you send him down the conveyor belt. Freddy finally arrives and you don't die, so you now know it has to be Chica. Realistically, this exact situation doesn't happen all too often, but I do think this malfunction clue is by far the most stressful out of all of them. I think it adds a new type of tension that the game needed. I love this clue. I think it adds a whole new interesting way of analyzing the threat. It's fantastic. After completing the night, we find another VHS. In it, we see the ghost possess Chica while she's sleeping, and she takes another piece to the basement. Heading back to the Barrens, we keep it short and sweet with Paul Bear. He says he knows of a way to the basement, and we tell him that after we wrap up our investigation tonight, we'll meet back up with him and head there to put an end to this. Heading to bed, it's on to Night 5. Night 5 adds no new clues, only being a more difficult version of Night 4, and by more difficult, I mean we have to find the ghost 7 times instead of 6. I'm really out of things to talk about when it comes to the night sections, as I've talked about everything that's relevant throughout them. All we have left to talk about now is in the basement. After completing Night 5, we get one last tape revealing all of the characters awakening the mangle, a foreshadow of what's to come. Heading back to the Barrens, Paul Bear explains the plan. We'll go along with whatever the mangle has planned and lure her into the Barrens and trap her forever. We say our final goodbyes to Paul Bear and enter the basement, not knowing what's ahead of us. Upon entering the basement, we're greeted to a new office. The basement serves as Night 6, the boss fight night. I'm just gonna put this out here right now. I am not a fan of Night 6, gameplay-wise at least. I think it looks great, and I think it serves excellent story purposes, but I think it's a massive step back from the core loop of the game. The basement is set up exactly how the office from FNAF 2 is. 2 open vents to your left and right, and a large hallway in front of you. You have access to a flashlight, cameras, and a Bonnie mask. Yes, it's literally just FNAF 2, even equipped with a music box to constantly wind throughout. Maybe this is the reason I don't like this night. Just kidding, it's not a maybe. Of course this is the reason I don't like it. I'm not a huge FNAF 2 fan personally, so seeing it in a FNAF game that I really like puts a bad taste in my mouth. However, I'm not going to let that discourage me. How does this night play, and are there any redeeming qualities? Throughout the night, all you have to do is wind the music box and put on your mask whenever the animatronic enters your office. If you ever see Foxy in the hallway, flash your light at him. Guys, it's literally just FNAF 2. I really don't have to explain this to you. The characters even look different on this night, and in the extras menu, this version of them is called Withered. It's FNAF 2. That's it. That is until the halfway mark. What the fuck? We were the mangle. What the fuck? Conveyor belt. Yo! What the fuck? Yo, the time's all fucked. What the fuck is that thing? Oh nah. Halfway through the night, your control panel will be forced up. You'll be able to see the conveyor belt and watch as each character makes its way through. Several sticky notes ridiculing you. Every single animatronic sacrifices its body to the mangle, and it's finally time for the final fight. The Mangle enters the building, and now is the perfect time to talk about how fucking disgusting these character models look, especially Mangle. The level of detail in these characters is insane. Seeing Mangle on the cameras is probably the most uncomfortable thing about this entire game. She's so gross and it's super cool. But I do have to ask the question, why the fuck do they look like this? Is our main character going insane and imagining that they look like monsters more than they do? Or did the manufacturers of these robots actually design the most fucked up, creepy robots of all time? Anyways, once the Mangle spawns, the way this night is played changes. Now, for some unknown reason, Mangle has an owl attached to her. Does that make sense? I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I can't for the fuck of me figure out what that might be. Occasionally, this owl head will appear in either of your two vents. When it does, all you have to do is put the mask on until it leaves. Mangle herself has a chance to appear in the hallway. As far as I can tell, she has no sound cues, so you have to constantly check for her yourself. When she's there, hold the flashlight on her until she leaves. Finally, we have the most soul-sucking, nutsack-tearing, butthole-puckering mechanic in the entire goddamn game. The Ghost. The Ghost can appear on any camera. You'll be able to tell because you can see her hand. When you see the Ghost, all you have to do is hold the light on the camera until it disappears. You might be asking yourself, why the fuck is that a problem? That sounds even easier than the owl. Hell, I almost guarantee you will never be able to see the cameras in your entire fucking life. Why? Well, as I'm sure you're aware if you've ever played a FNAF game before, when a character moves from one camera to another, it's very common for the camera to go black for a moment. This is done so that you don't see the characters teleporting out of sight. However, the Mangle moves so goddamn cocksucking fast through the cameras that they will be black for about, 90% of the fucking night. Meaning that, very rarely will you be able to check if the Ghost is on a camera. Could we stop? Could we stop? Literally, what the fuck am I supposed to do? She's moving around the camera so fast, I can't even fucking look to hold the light on her. I feel like this is unintentionally difficult, but it's actually so bullshit, it's not even close to fun. This is the main reason why I dislike Night 6 as much as I do. Dying because I couldn't find the Ghost because I can't see the fucking cameras for more than 0.3 seconds every 14 decades is not fun. It ruins the pacing of the game and destroys all immersion I had in the situation. But if you can manage to not get fingered by the Ghost, you'll survive to 6 AM and lure the Ghost into the Barrens. The Ghost grabs Paul Bear, revealing he himself is a costume, not an actual plush bear. Surprise, surprise. This should have been obvious. The Ghost tells Paul Bear she's going to kill us, but we quickly run up behind her while she's distracted and fucking gank her ass. Dead kids! Rah! Rah! The screen cuts to black. We learn 5 years later, Juniors would reopen after some significant rebranding, focusing on, quote, family fun and above all safety. A line that should be familiar sounding if you've played the official games. Finally, a character named Jeremy is asked when they're free to start the job. Let's pause. This twist is pretty damn cool. We saw an exact replica of the FNAF 2 office on Night 6, and now we learn that Jeremy Fitzgerald is being hired. Of course, knowing the official lore, Jeremy was the night guard in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and the family fun and above all safety is something the phone guy says in FNAF 2 as well. Which would lead me to believe that the rebranding of Juniors was to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in the form of the pizzeria we see in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, using the toy animatronics and the layout we find in the basement. But with that final awesome twist, Juniors comes to a close. Overall, I think Juniors is unironically the best Five Nights at Freddy's game I've ever played, even beating out the official games. Sure, I'm not the biggest fan of the final boss night, but the rest of the game easily makes up for that shortcoming. Juniors is 100% at the top of my fan game tier list, and I highly doubt it will be losing that position anytime soon. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think Juniors is actually poopy dog shit? Let me know what you think in the comments below. In my animatronics memories video, I asked you guys what your least favorite FNAF game was and why. My favorite answer was this one from Pikachu Girl Kai, who said the Jolly series, and I couldn't agree more. If you're wondering why I agree so much, I have an entire hour-long video where I dog on the whole thing on this channel. Go check it out after this one.
What's the best Five Nights at Freddy's fan game ever made? I think there's a few answers that could really give a valid argument. Maybe you think it's One Night at Flumpty's. Maybe you think Pop Goes. Or maybe... maybe you're super wrong and think Five Nights at Candy's 2. God, I fucking hate that stupid game so much. It's so goddamn boring and repetitive. I'd rather stick my dick in a toaster than play it. But hey, that's probably a video for another day. I should mention that the title of this video says the best FNAF fan game, but what that really means is from a gameplay standpoint. How fun is it to actually play? Maybe after hearing that, your answer has changed. The game we'll be covering in this video is, in my opinion, the best FNAF fan game from a gameplay standpoint that has ever been made, The Joy of Creation Storyborn. Fun fact, Markiplier also agrees with me on this point.
I'm not even lying about this. This was amazing. This is by far the best Five Nights at Freddy's fan game ever made, just from a gameplay standpoint. And I'm only speaking from a gameplay standpoint.
So yeah, Markiplier and I are basically best friends. Mark, if you're watching, best friend, leave a comment that just says, "Peep." That way everyone will know that we are canonically best friends. Thanks, my boy. Before we begin, I'd like to greatly apologize for my lack of videos in the last 2, probably 3 weeks as of the time of this going up. I just got done moving to a new city and starting my new full-time job, so I have not had any free time. But I'm finally back in the groove, and I have a set work schedule that won't change, so expect uploads to be more frequent now. I plan on releasing 1 video a week on the White channel. Don't quote me on that, but I will definitely try my best to keep it up. Also, big news, we have a community Discord server now. Hooray! A while back I asked you guys in a community post if you wanted a Discord server, and the majority of you said yes. So I hunkered down and actually got one created. It probably isn't the best, but with your guys' suggestions, I'm sure we can make it a place where we all want to hang out and chat with each other. You can join using the link in the description. In the last video, I asked you all what your favorite monster from the web of cogs and oil was. My favorite comment was this one by Ads the Flareon. They chose the corpse, and while my favorite is the Dxtr, I really like the thought process behind this answer. Flareon says that they're so desensitized to animatronics that the machine isn't even on the table for favorite. They go on to say how out of place the corpse feels and how that alone makes it the creepiest. Jesus, would he just get to the topic of the video already? Yap, that's all this bozo does. Listen, I hear you. You don't need to be a dick. Let's get to the video. The Joy of Creation story mode is, as I'm sure you already know, not the first game in the Joy of Creation series, but let's all be honest with each other, it's easily the first one that's actually enjoyable to play. The original Joy of Creation might actually be the most boring experience of all time. It consisted of you sitting in a chair, spinning in a circle, and flashing your flashlight at everything you see for an infinite amount of time. That's right, there wasn't even a time system. Story mode, however, is absolutely amazing, so let's get into it. The game opens with a cutscene. We play as an adult named Nick Cawthon. Recognize that last name? Well, you should, and don't worry, I'll be talking about it in a bit. Nick walks up to an old house in the middle of the woods and recounts how long it's been since he's last been there, insinuating that something terrible happened inside before. We get a flashback detailing the start of what happened, and we're shifted into the point of view of a new character named Michael. Michael wakes up in a basement. We find out it is in fact not Michael's basement, and is instead Scott Cawthon's? What the fuck? Regardless, Scott asks Michael what he's doing in their house. Michael states that he doesn't know, and a child version of Nick convinces Scott and Val, who is Scott's wife, to let Michael stay the night at their house. Absolutely, positively, possibly one of the worst plays I've ever witnessed in my whole entire life. You found a guy in your basement, talked to him for 3 minutes, got a solid 0 answers from him, and allowed him to stay in your house overnight while your wife and child are inside. Absolutely brilliant. This is when we enter the first, what the game calls, memories. I can't call them nights since all of the challenges we will play through actually happen at pretty much the exact same time. For Memory 1, we are in a bedroom in a crib, where we play as Nick again, this time as a child.
We wake up in the middle of the night during a thunderstorm, and Michael starts talking through Nick's baby monitor, effectively acting as the phone guy of this memory. Michael explains to Nick that there are monsters trying to get him, and explains in detail how to fend them all off, explaining that at 6 a.m. the monsters will all go away and we're thrown into the first challenge. Unlike in most FNAF games where you slowly are introduced to each animatronic throughout the nights, adding more and more stress as it goes on, Story Mode opts to do something different. Story Mode throws essentially every animatronic on your nuts all at once. This memory has Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy in it. I'll now go over all of their mechanics. Before I dive into the character mechanics, I'll start by mentioning the lamp. Behind you there is a lamp. By turning it on, you calm yourself down. Having the lamp off for too long will lead to you having intense visual and auditory hallucinations before inevitably losing the run. Now, I'll start with Chica since she's by far the easiest to deal with. Chica comes from your closet. There will be a noticeable audio cue when she opens the closet door. When she does, you'll have to turn off your lamp and wait for her to go back into the closet. Personally, I didn't know Chica swang that way, but I think it's pretty sick. Next, I'll go over Bonnie. Bonnie comes from your bedroom door. He will make a notable audio cue like Chica. He will knock on the door 3 times. When you hear this, you'll need to be quick, because you only have so long to react. When you hear the knocks, you'll have to quickly shut your lamp off and lay down in your crib. I should mention that laying down is a mechanic, and if you lay down while Chica's in your room, she'll kill you. After laying down in bed, Bonnie will slam your door open, look around, and then leave the room again, which tells you that it's safe to get back up and turn your lamp back on. Bonnie has this really weird mechanic. I'm not sure if it's a bug or if it's intended. However, a lot of the time, I'd say about 50% at least, when you hear Bonnie knock, he'll never end up coming into the room, which caused me on multiple occasions to shut the lamp off and lay down, only for the sound of Bonnie coming into the room to never play, meaning I end up laying down for way longer than I should, which pretty obviously fucks me over. Next, we'll talk about Freddy. Freddy appears at the window next to your crib. When he does, all you need to do is close the curtains to prevent him from seeing you. After a few moments, you'll hear a quiet sound cue letting you know he's left, and it's free to open your curtains again. But what if you hear Bonnie knocking or Chica coming in while you're holding off Freddy? Well, I'll tell you, you'll just get bread in the butt. So when you shart Bonnie's jizz on the toilet after being bread in the butt, we can talk about Foxy. Oh my god, Foxy. Foxy's under your bed like your weird uncle. Occasionally, you'll hear him scratching his hook on your bedpost. Well, at least, that's what Michael says that he's doing. I personally subscribe to the belief that he's scratching his hook on his big fat stupid balls. When you hear him doing this, you know that he will soon be attacking. A while after the sound cue, you will be able to see Foxy's hook on the back of your bed. When you do, you know you don't have much time left until he attacks, so quickly turn off your lamp, lay down, and close your eyes. Oh yeah, forgot to mention you can close your eyes while laying down. It's just used for Foxy, which is why I didn't say anything. Repeat this ass cycle enough times and congrats, you've beaten the first memory. Only 4 more left to go. The second memory takes place in the living room of the house. In this memory, you play as Scott's wife, Val. We start with a cutscene where Scott tells Val that he's going to make sure Nick is okay, since both of them are pretty uncomfortable with Michael staying in the house, which bodes the question, why the fuck did you even let him in? Regardless, Scott leaves and Val is left alone. This game mode is honestly probably my favorite. I personally feel it is the most terrifying out of the rest. In this memory, rather than being confined to one area like normal FNAF games, you're freely able to move around. Just like in the last memory, you have to survive until 6 a.m. against all 4 main animatronics. Michael tells us that we're fucked and to just hide. Thanks, Michael. Very helpful. Since Michael was no fucking help at all, allow me to explain what it is you're supposed to do on this night. Let's start with Foxy and Freddy. These two act identical to one another. Each come down the hallway on one side of the living room. You can check how far away they are by turning the TV on while watching their cameras. Yeah, for some reason Foxy and Freddy have cameras mounted on their faces or something. I'm not really sure, but we don't question it. You can stall one of them at a time by holding down a button. Somehow.
I don't really know, guys. I really like this memory, but this part actually makes no sense. Please bear with me. Get it? Bear. Like Freddy. Like Freddy, because Freddy's like Freddy Fazbear. Like he's a bear. Bear with me. Do you get it, guys? Guys, do you get because he's like a bear? You'll notice that Foxy and Freddy both move at the same speed. So if you don't begin stalling one of them, they will reach your room at the same time, which will mean immediate death for you. How do you keep them out? I hear you asking. Well, guess what? You don't. That's right. The animatronics in this night will literally enter the room you are in and try and find you, so you'll need to hide from them when they open the door. The way you hide from Foxy and Freddy is by hiding right next to the door that they'll be opening. The only problem with this is that when you're standing next to one door, you're right in the line of sight for the other, meaning that if you're hiding from Freddy and Foxy opens the door, he'll see you and promptly kill you. This is why stalling one of them is super important, as you'll be able to control and create a pattern at which they will come to the doors. Now let's talk about Bonnie. Along with the 2 doors that Foxy and Freddy come from, there are also double doors to the living room as well. I really have no idea why there are so many entrances to the living room. This house is a fucking maze. Bonnie doesn't have a camera, so you can't watch him directly. Instead, you'll have to walk over to the double doors and look through the keyhole to see how close he is. Once he gets close enough that you'll be able to smell the grease on his fuzzy nutsack, you just have to hide on either side of the double door and wait for Bonnie to arrive and close the door. Which brings yet another issue. When you're hiding from Bonnie, whichever side of the door you're on will leave you vulnerable to either Freddy or Foxy, so you'll really have to balance and know where Foxy and Freddy are at all times. It's the reason why I really like this memory. I really like micromanagement in games that are both hard but fair. This is why I think 1020 mode in FNAF 2 is such bullshit, because it's actually just not fair, especially Toy Bonnie. Toy Bonnie is the reason why it took me 14 hours to complete that stupid fucking mode. If you want me to make a video talking in detail about why I hate that mode specifically, let me know in the comments below. With Bonnie, Freddy, and Foxy being gone over, the only character left to talk about is Chica. Chica is easily the weakest character in this night, very similar to last night. Chica will randomly appear next to one of the windows in the living room. You'll be able to tell because she starts growling? What? She's a fucking chicken. Why would she growl? Whatever, that doesn't matter. When she does, you'll have to get up from the couch. I should have probably mentioned that when you look at the TV to check on Freddy and Foxy, you have to sit down on the couch. I didn't think it was important when I was writing that part of the script, but I just remembered while writing this part, and I'm honestly way too lazy to go back and edit that part of the video to add one sentence. So instead, I opted to add in a whole nother section just to explain why I didn't explain that part of the game before, arguably padding for runtime, even though this video would have been well over 15 minutes without it. Hopefully you enjoyed this section of Dxtr Over Explains. Anyway, when you hear Chica growling, you'll have to stand up from the couch and not move until you hear the growling stop. Once you do, you're free to move again. If you move, Chica will jump scare you, which actually doesn't kill you until the final hour. Instead, it will just send you back to the couch and you won't be able to check the cameras for a while. Chica is easily the weakest part of this memory, as previously stated. She just feels so shallow compared to the other 3. I know the other 3 all do the exact same thing, but they do so in a way that feels interesting. They do so in unison, as even though they do the same thing, they all work together in a way that keeps up the intensity all night. Chica just feels so out of place. After 6 a.m., this memory is over and we can move on to the next one. The next memory takes place in the office where you play as Scott Cawthon himself. This memory starts with Scott going to check on Nick, but of course, we both know what Nick and Val are going through at the moment. Now it's Scott's turn. Scott sees Freddy and starts running. I'm talking haul-assin'. His house starts going batshit crazy and Scott hides in his office. He listens to a tape he left himself on how to defeat the animatronics that he made. I try to wrap my head around this section and the lore implications behind why he was leaving himself recordings, but I'm honestly too tired and way more focused on the gameplay in this game. This night is okay, I guess. It's interesting at the least. and it's very clearly just a large improvement from the first Joy of Creation game. Instead of just spinning in a circle and flashing your light when you find animatronics, you actually instead have to actively search for each animatronic. Let's start with Freddy, since he's both the easiest to deal with and the weirdest overall. Freddy can appear in any of the 4 entrances to the office: the front door, the window, the other window, and the closet. Just like the living room, this memory is free roam, so you'll move around to find the animatronics. When you find Freddy, just flash him with your flashlight and he'll leave. Something very interesting about Freddy that I should note: if left unanswered, Freddy will not kill you throughout the memory. Rather, he acts as a check for the end of it. If you reach 6 a.m. and Freddy is in one of the locations where you could find him, he'll kill you, so you have to make sure that you're really on top of him. I'll talk about Foxy next. On your desk you'll find 3 monitors with cameras. It's been so long, really starting to feel like classic FNAF now. You can look through the cameras on these monitors to find Foxy. When you do, all you have to do is look at him on said cameras. Eventually he'll have a seizure and leave. That's it, pretty simple. But of course, the characters in this game tend to like to work together to make your life more difficult. So that brings me to Bonnie. You can also find Bonnie on the cameras. However, if you see Bonnie on the cameras, make sure not to look at him directly. If you do, he'll punch the shit out of your camera, and you'll no longer be able to look at it for the rest of the memory. Instead, you have to go to the location corresponding to which camera you saw him on and flash him with your light to make him go away. Now we can talk about Chica, who, unlike the last 2 memories, is actually my favorite. So there's this giant fucking hole in the wall of your office. I don't know why, you also don't know why, so we won't question it. Chica will try to fit her big fat hairy ass through it slowly, and I do mean slowly. Slow as fuck. So slow. Once she begins to wriggle and writhe in your hole, pause. Once she begins to shake on your hole, pause. Fuck. Once she begins to force herself through your hole, pause. God damn it. You know what? Once she starts to move, you have to get up and find 3 cupcakes hidden around your room. Once you do, she'll leave. These cupcakes can be hidden in drawers, behind posters, and my favorite, in the fucking garbage. Since it may take you a bit of time to find these cupcakes while working on dealing with the other animatronics, if you look at Chica, she will stop moving, giving you more time to look for the cupcakes. Congrats, you little stinker. Once you hit 6 a.m., if Freddy is gone, you're free to move on to Memory 4. Memory 4 is by far the most different and intuitive. I will say, I'm not super sure how it works, so I'm sorry if my explanation is god-awful. In fact, since I'm so nervous I'll be god-awful, I'll let my best friend Markiplier that I mentioned earlier take it away. It's totally going to be him giving a detailed explanation of this memory, and totally not just me doing a montage edit of his playthrough of this memory with a little bit of commentary. Mark, please don't copyright this, we're best friends.
My name is Markiplier. It's time to go into the basement. Whoa.
Kids! Are any of you there? I found your note. Daddy's here. You must be really scared, but I'm here. I created you. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy. How is this happening? What are you? What are you?
Ow! Ah, good. Yes, you put me in the shitty toilet. Oh, good. Thank you for that. Why is this in my basement? Oh, okay. All right, then. Am I not gonna get any information about this one? Am I just gonna be left to my own devices? There seems to be a lot of 6 on the walls here. Oh, hi! Hello? Who are you? I gotta get through the door. I'm gonna try to sneak over to the bathroom again. Why did I come in here? I didn't need to come in here. Oh! Ah! We come from the fire! I need a cupcake, I need a triangle, I need a swirkly-doo, I need a roll. I don't know what any of those are. Ah! I am in the furnace! There must be like... Oh, what the fuck? Okay, I got a hook. Oh, okay, that's in the furnace now. Well, that's good to know. Okay, no? Alright then. Yee, okay. Nope, you're still there. Okay, that's a problem. Yeah, I'm right there. Okay, got it. It's gone quiet. makes sense. We got 4 more to go, and that one took a while. Many shapes, all similar, but different. Oh, it's a code thing, isn't it? All right. Ah, wait. Okay, the numbers coincide with the number of creatures. 9632. I'm not sure I'm too happy about this, but there we go. So, Hey! Okay! Oh boy. Oh, hi. Okay. Doop. Bee doop. Bee doop. Oh, that's not good. Oh god, it's a code. Of course it's over there. I don't know the code for this one. Bonnie with 4. So Freddy had 3. Bonnie 4. Foxy 2. As it leaves Chica with 1, right? Oh, I see. Okay. They're colored. Okay. Chica first. Foxy second. Ooh. What? Okay. Oh. Oh, I can close it behind me. Alrighty then. Got the key. I don't know! Okay, where am I now? Oh. Pressing forward because I got nothing better to do and I have a funny feeling I'm gonna die. Okay, that's... keep going. Okay, don't look back. I'm not gonna look back. Why would I look back? Okay, I looked back. I don't know what that did, but I did it. Ah! Ah! That's why you don't stupidly look back. All right, number 2. Oh, that was number 3. Oh, we act, we posed, we played, we stopped, we stared, we scream. Hi, Golden Freddy. Oh, he remains. Oh. What do I do about this? Oh, hi. What the fuck? Oh, hi. Oh my god. Okay. Holy shit, I saw that move, man. Ooh. Oh, no door. Oh, we're in no door land. I got a bad feeling about this. Oh, everything's gone. Excuse me. Hello. Oh, it's his computer. Hey, I made it. Simple tricks of the mind or something more sinister. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Bye-bye.
Wasn't that sick? Thank you, Markiplier. Truly my best friend of all time. Finally, it's time to talk about the final memory of this game, which takes place in the attic. In this memory, you play as Scott again. Michael beats your shit up and ties you to a chair in the attic. He tells you that you're gonna burn and die, because fire in Five Nights at Freddy's is like beans on toast to British people. I don't know if I'd call them people though. Gonna be real, don't really give a shit what Michael has to say. I'm much more concerned about the fire in my goddamn house. In this night, you go up against 2 endoskeletons, Golden Freddy, and The Creation. Oh my god, Creation! Like the joy of creation, that's the name of the game. Isn't that so cool? Oh, that's so fucking cool. I'm gonna scrub my nuts on a cactus. Anyway, The Creation is the coolest part of this memory, so I'll cover it last. Let's start with the poopy ass Golden Freddy. Unlike other memories, surviving isn't enough to complete it. Instead, you actively have a task to complete. In this case, you have to find Golden Freddy on your cameras 12 times and shock him. Once you do, you finish the memory. Sounds pretty easy, doesn't it? Wrong, you fucking idiot. It's actually pretty bullshit. Wanna know why? Because of The Creation. But I'll get to the poopy ass Creation in a minute. First, I have to talk about the stupid bumbling endoskeletons. So as I was double checking their mechanics, I learned that the endoskeletons are actually called the Fallen. Pretty cool, I suppose, and typing the Fallen is way easier than typing endoskeletons over and over again. So that's what I'll be calling them. In your cameras, you can switch from the house cameras to the attic cameras. It's on these attic cameras where you can see the Fallen. Inside of the attic, there are 2 large doors. Each Fallen will come from one of these doors. When you hear their enormous fat asses trampling down the hall, just make sure you close the door on the correct side of your attic to not have your ass blasted. I should also mention that Golden Freddy can appear in your office all transparent like. I don't really know what happens if he does this, as every time I saw him I quickly looked away out of habit from FNAF 2. Now we can get to Poop Dog, aka The Creation. The Creation will start in the basement of your house. As the memory progresses, the Creation will make his way through the house and to the attic where you are. Now, I know just by looking at him, you may be thinking, God damn, that robot is really hot, and I agree. However, this is not the character you're going to want to rule 30 for you. He'll bend you like a contortionist, but we both know full well that you can't bend like that, so you'd probably just end up dying. On your cameras, you'll see these 4 markers that represent doors or barriers. As the creation moves, he will break his way through these barriers in an attempt to get to you. You can use your shock to send him back a phase in the cameras, but this brings up an issue. Your shock has a painfully slow recharge time, and if you flash the creation, then you won't be able to flash Golden Freddy to win. Finding the perfect balance between flashing these two is key to defeating this memory. Once you've found and flashed the 12th and final Golden Freddy, the attic memory will be completed. As far as gameplay goes, that's where the Joy of Creation story mode comes to a close. There's multiple other things along with an enormous timeline to dissect, but I'd rather die. I like talking about how the game plays, and in that case, Joy of Creation story mode is top notch. Every single memory plays completely differently, and I think this is the main reason why it's so good. With other fan games and even the originals themselves, you quickly understand what you need to do and can then begin to come up with strategies that allow you to not use certain intended parts of the game. For example, FNAF 2. In FNAF 2, there are a lot of cameras. Like, a lot. However, you only ever need to use one. That's not very interesting when you think about it. You actually have no good reason to ever look at any of the other cameras in the game because the music box is all that matters. Same goes with FNAF 1. The only cameras you have to look at are the right corner cameras to make sure Freddy stays put, and occasionally you'll have to check on Foxy, but if you're playing correctly, you don't even have to look at Foxy in order to win. The Joy of Creation story mode switches up the gameplay loop every night. None of the nights are terribly complex, leaving out the attic, but since you have to learn something new each night, that's not something I have a problem with. I think if you were to take one of these memories from this game and turn it into a standalone game, I wouldn't like the game very much, because repeating formulas just isn't fun in any game. Don't keep repeating yourself, or if you do, make sure that it's repeated in a way that's interesting. For example, Undertale. While that whole game is based around an RPG battle mechanic, every enemy has unique and different attack patterns to learn, and just when you get bored of dodging projectiles, the game switches it up and changes the mechanics and physics of the heart you play as. It's brilliant, and so is this game. I think if more FNAF devs took inspiration for how this game plays out, overall, we would have a lot more fan games that stand out and are fresh and exciting. But let me know what you think in the comments below.
Popular pre-existing IPs in FNAF games. I'm sure quite a few examples already come to your mind when I say that. Five Nights at Wario's, Five Nights at Sonic's, Five Nights at the Krusty Krab, among many others, are very popular examples of this. However, in my journey of playing FNAF games to find games worthy enough to talk about, there's one very popular IP I see show up very frequently. An IP that has so many games made by multiple different talented individuals, and the person who made the game we'll be talking about today needs no introduction. Today, we're going to be talking about a FNAF game about Teletubbies. You might think that's weird since I just talked about the Tubbyland Archives Act 1 a few weeks ago, but this is a perfect example of just how many FNAF fan games have been built around this IP. Today, we'll be covering The Remnants of Tubbyland, a FNAF fan game made by Avocado Dreams, the same person responsible for one of the most terrifying FNAF games ever designed, Graveyard Shift at Freddy's. Rest assured, this game is terrifying as well, and not only that, it's also really hard. So let's waste no more time and jump right into The Remnants of Tubbyland. To begin, we have to talk about the setting in which this game takes place. Typically in FNAF games, we see the setting as a restaurant, with animatronics that were on stage and would sing in the party room while the children ate their food. But not this time around. The Remnants of Tubbyland takes place in a daycare that's been seemingly left to rot. We take the job as a night guard, and before we know it, we're thrown into a twisted death trap. Loading into the office for the first time, there's already a lot to talk about.
Please don't be as hard as the fucking other. What the fuck am I looking at?
Let's start by mentioning how fucking creepy this game looks. Obviously, we've got this little fella sitting in front of us, and of course, he will become more important later on. But seriously, just look at the scenery in this game. I honestly think it's creepier than Graveyard Shift. Everything just looks so grainy, uncanny, and gross. It seems like a really nasty place to have to spend your time, and yet here we are spending our time here. We get our night one phone call, and it's just about as basic as you could imagine. The typical night one phone call stuff. The phone guy introduces where we are, why we're watching over the place, and pretends like there's nothing to be worried about, because the murder robots would never murder us.
So if they enter your room, they could knock stuff over and probably damage themselves more than they already have.
Just say they can blow my shit out.
The reason we're given as to why we're here is pretty unclear. However, we're told that our main objective is just to watch the robots since they are capable of moving around. At least they can acknowledge that this is something that is happening. Of course, he says they won't hurt us, but also decides it's a great idea to explain to us how to defend ourselves on the off chance they come into our office. He explains their facial recognition and says that if they move around too much, they may damage themselves. So I guess we've got some suicidal robots around here. Fantastic. Anyways, how many threats are introduced on night 1? 2. 2 threats are introduced on night 1, so let's go over them. Let's start with this game's main attraction, Dipsy.
So I don't see nobody yet. Bro, let me tell you, Avocado Dreams. She knows how to set an atmosphere. What the fuck is that?
Dude, Dipsy Dick will begin on camera 2. If we take a look at the map, we can see the path that the characters will have to take to reach us. It's a little bit confusing, so really take a look at it. As you can see, camera 2 is not actually connected to our office at all. This entire building is just one big spiral to reach our office. So Dipsy Dick will have to start from camera 2, then go to 3, 4, 5, and to finally end up in camera 7 before he can attack us. Make sense? Good. Dipsy makes no noise when moving around, so you'll have to track him yourself on the cameras. Once he reaches camera 7, he actually has 2 phases. One far away from the camera, and another where he's a lot closer to the camera. And even despite the fact that this is a robot, somehow his face is able to distort to an unrealistic length. Don't question it. Ooh, spooky. That's all that matters.
Like an entire half of the building has no cameras in it. That's so ugly. That's so ugly.
Once Dipsy makes it to the second phase on camera 7, his next movement opportunity will have him disappear. When he does, that's how you know he's about to attack you. Since Dipsy will never move backwards, it's always easy to keep track of him. Once he does disappear, you'll have to put on the sun mask located on your desk. It works exactly the same as the mask from FNAF 2, and of course, Avocado Dreams did not disappoint with the animations. Take a look.
Oh my god, dude, that'd be so sick. Damn, bro. That is so cool. That's so cool, bro.
I can't lie to you, man. This shit cool as fuck. This shit cool as fuck.
Just creepy as fuck, isn't it? God, I love it. It's so cool. Anyways, something else about your mask that you've probably noticed is this asthma meter. This is basically just the scrapped toxic meter from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. The longer your mask is on, the higher your asthma meter will increase. And if it increases all the way, the mask will forcefully be taken off, and you'll have to wait for a cooldown before you can put it on again. And that's obviously not a good thing, especially not on later nights. Now, for the second threat this night introduces, Trumpet. Trumpet acts as more of a nuisance character rather than an actual threat in this game. However, don't let that make you think you can ignore him, because you most certainly cannot. Occasionally, you'll be able to see Trump Dick rising up from behind your desk. It does make a noise, but on later nights, you may find it hard to hear it while you're on the cameras, so you should get into the habit of checking often. When Trumpet starts to rise, you will have to quickly find his error message that randomly spawns on one of your cameras. My least favorite FNAF mechanic hidden into a character that technically doesn't enter the camera themselves. I'm onto you, game. Watch your back. When you find the error, simply press the power button and Trumpet will fall back behind your desk. But what happens if you just let Trumpet fully appear and start blasting your eardrums with the loudest sound you've ever heard in your entire life? Well, the sound that emits from it will slowly cause the AI value of every other character to slowly increase until Trumpet is turned off. And even after you turn Trumpet off, you want to hear something crazy? The AI values will never go back down throughout the night. So let me tell you, you do not want to miss a trumpet attack. You will very quickly regret it. Old trumpet dick. Night 2 introduces probably the most revolting, nasty, fuck-ass character I've ever seen in my life on this earth. Luckily, it's not nearly as bad as one of Avocado Dream's other demon spawns, Sheriff Slitherdick, but trust me, this character... Luckily, it's not nearly as bad as one of Avocado Dream's other demon spawns, Sheriff Slitherdick, but trust me, this character will still make you want to cover your willy with honey and jump wiener first into a fire anthill. That character, of course, is Poe. Poe is a very simple character to understand. However, that's probably the scariest part about her. Poe starts on camera 1. She will then move to camera 3. From 3, she will either move to camera 2 or camera 4. You want her to move to camera 4. Trust me, it's better for your mental health overall. She will then move between cameras 6, 4, 5, and 3 for the rest of the night. She will never naturally wander to your office, but don't let that make you think you're safe. You're not safe. You're never safe. This is easily the worst character in the entire game. While poop is on the cameras, if you're looking at the camera she's on, you'll be able to hear the song she emits as she wanders around. You'll have to track her around the cameras to constantly make sure the song is playing. If the song ever stops, you're in trouble. On night 2, a large red button will appear on your desk. If the music stops, all you have to do is push this button and her music will reset. But you have to be really fast. If her music is off, that's when she'll make her way to your office. If you at any point see her in camera 7, you need to hit the button immediately. Faster than you've ever hit anything else before in your entire life. Faster than a 1950s husband hits his wife after coming home and not having a martini in his hand the moment he walks through the door. If you don't, obviously... if you don't... if you don't, obviously she's... Damn it. If you don't, obviously she's gonna bounce into your office and start bouncing on it crazy style. Riding it like a bike with no seat type shit. Oh, but he's fast. It is me or did Poe get really fast? Oh shit. Oh my god, my ass just fell off. Fuck. And before you say anything, look at this ugly fuck. You don't want that. The problem that Poe brings into this game is obviously requiring your constant attention. And Dipsy has already been shown to require a lot of your attention as well. And trust me, the synergy that Poe has with every other character that will be introduced into this game is prominent and brutal the entire way through. So let's continue talking about them, shall we? Night 3 brings on this fuckhead in your office, Tinky Winky. So I really like that. I don't like this fucker staring at me right now. I can't lie. That I'm not a huge fan of, the way he's looking at me. He's like licking his lips and shit. And it's like, let's not. Hey. Ooh. Ooh. Tinky Dick works in the exact same way as Peggy from Showman's The Awakening, which I've covered on this channel before, and you should go watch that video after you finish this one. Tinky Dick is very much a weeping angel character. If you're looking at him, he won't move. But if you have your camera up, he will slowly begin to creep towards you throughout 3 different phases. Each phase is pretty obvious, so don't worry about not noticing it. After the final phase, he will attempt to jump you like you're in the streets of Compton. All you have to do is put your mask on and he'll go back to where he was. However, unlike Dipsy, Tinky requires you to be a lot faster with your mask, and you can't put on your mask before an attack to bait the attack out. Tinky has to attack before putting the mask on will push him backwards. Thankfully, if you're on your cameras, he will force them down when he attacks. So it isn't just a guessing game, but you have to be really, really fast, especially on later nights. You'll have close to only 1 second to put it on once he attacks, lest your butt cheeks get spread and he lathers peanut butter and jelly on that shit like a midnight snack. Oh, okay. It's blatantly obvious. Huh, bitch? Was I just not fast enough? Do you have to be like really, really quick with it? Obviously, Tinky brings up an enormous problem. With 2 characters requiring you to constantly watch them on the cameras, adding a character that penalizes you for using the cameras is obviously going to cause quite a bit of problems. This is actually the problem that led to me having to change the way I play the game and switch up my strategy to solely focusing on Poe and occasionally checking on camera 7 to see if Dipsy has arrived yet. It's also this character that made me decide to start forcing attacks from him. For example, let's say Dipsy just attacked me. I know it's going to be a while before Dipsy can come to attack me again. So in order to not have the asthma meter blow up my guts, I would sit and stare at the cameras until Tinky attacked me, resetting his timer before the next Dipsy attack. It's a very AIDS strategy that makes me die a little bit on the inside, but it does get the job done well enough. Well, now it's time to move on to night 4 and introduce a character so sepsis-ridden you'd think you've injected yourself with every disease on Earth. Lala. Lala starts in camera 1 like poop. She has a set path around the map to get to your office, very similar to Dipsy. On this night, you'll notice that each camera Lala will travel through will now be equipped with a camera button, allowing you to take a picture of each camera and obviously emitting a flash of light at the same time. I'm sure you can tell exactly where this is going. Lala will move throughout the cameras during this night. You will have to flash her on whatever camera she's on to push her back. Then go to the camera you pushed her to and flash her again. Keep doing this until you push her back into camera 1. When she goes back into camera 1, she will shut down and won't attack again for a while, so doing this is very important. And if you're lucky, you can catch her really quickly and only have to push her back once. The problem with her? She is very, very fast. She will move through her cameras faster than the fat bitch in line at the Golden Corral who's hopping up and down because the buffet just got refilled. Sit down, Shamu.
There are so many things that I don't understand. I don't know what's going on right now. Oh. You're telling me she got all the way through the cameras that fast? You're telling me she got through every camera that fast? No. No. This is bullshit. Let me tell you what this is. This is bullshit, bro. Like, what the fuck is that? What is that? How the fuck am I supposed to keep track of those 3 fuckers at the same time while also not looking at the cameras for this fucker? I'll tell you how, you don't. That's bullshit. What the fuck? We now have an interesting group of mechanics to talk about. Thankfully, even though this game does rely a lot on RNG, there was a very clear attempt put in place by Avocado Dreams to mitigate how much RNG is actually involved. The main example I can point to is Tinky Winky. Tinky Winky will never attack you if Lala has left camera 1. This prevents an insta-loss that would otherwise be present. Obviously, if Tinky Dick is about to attack and you get an attack from Lala, if you were to deal with Lala, then Tinky would attack you, and while being attacked, Lala would easily make it to your office and kill you. So thank God Tinky isn't able to attack you while Lala is. However, his aggression meter will still increase, meaning that immediately after you deal with Lala, it's very likely you will get an insta attack from Tinky. So you'll need to be fast, but at least there isn't any luck involved. Night 5 introduces nothing new, and is just a much harder version of Night 4. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you guys. I was not able to beat Night 5. I'm sure that if I threw in hours upon hours of attempts, I would have beaten it eventually, but I just don't have the type of patience like other people do. I applaud you if you beat it, but I did not. But now we get to talk about what everyone who's familiar with this game has been waiting for: Custom Night, and the secret night that comes along with it. If you go into Custom Night, you may notice that there is an extra character slot just labeled NA. You'll also notice that you're unable to set its AI value. If you input the code 34193 into the other characters and press start, you will be entered into the secret boss night this game has to offer: Dream Night. Dream Night introduces 2 new threats, while disabling all other threats we've seen so far. These 2 new characters are Nunu and Evocation. Let's start with Evocation since he was easily the character that confused me the most. Evocation will begin on camera 2, slowly emerging from a screen. After he leaves that camera, he will randomly teleport to any other camera except camera 1. You'll have to quickly find him and keep your eyes on him. From there, he can attack you in one of 2 ways. The first way will have him get super close to the camera and laugh like a child, which just fills me with rage because I hate children.
When he does, all you have to do is flash whichever camera he went to. His other attack has him disappear from the camera entirely. If he does, he will immediately teleport inside of your office and float above you like he's possessed by the devil. If this is the attack he chooses, all you have to do is put your mask on and he will leave instantly. You do have to be pretty fast with both attacks, so make sure you have your reflex game on point. Another thing to point out about the way Evocation attacks is that he will never attack the same way twice. So, his first attack will be random, but from there it will be incredibly easy to predict how he will attack since he'll just be alternating between the two, which honestly serves to make this boss fight easier. Anyways, on to the only other threat present in Dream Night, Nunu, the vacuum, or if you have bad teeth and your country's food tastes like shit, a Hoover. Nunu is very simple, really just being a distraction character. He will randomly wander around cameras 4, 5, and 6. Occasionally, you may hear a loud metal bang. That means Nunu is just being a pesky little guy. Find which camera he's on, which should be pretty easy since his eyes will be flashing and he'll be emitting a nasty noise. Simply flash the camera he's on and bada bing bada boom, he's dealt with. Upon beating Dream Night, you will unlock that special character in the custom night screen. Spoiler alert, it's fucking Evocation. You might be wondering where Nunu is. Well, Nunu is actually a part of Evocation. So if you activate Evocation, Nunu will be activated alongside him as well, which I honestly think is really cool. As far as the story of this game goes, Avocado Dreams kept it pretty simple. After completing Night 5, we get this news article along with our paycheck. Infamous Tubbyland Daycare finally sees its end after a 15-year-long battle to sell the property. Following a tragic accident back in 2000, the childcare facility promptly closed its doors and left the building dormant, alone, and forgotten. Years having flown by, locals urged city officials to accelerate the auction process due to rumors that have been circulating the desolate daycare. The property is planned to be utilized for a brand new facility using the same philosophies and presentation ideas, but aiming for a new and safer direction. So it's very clear that something terrible happened in 2000. So what could that possibly be referring to? According to the wiki, back in 2000, Nunu fucking exploded inside of the daycare, starting a massive fire. Our player, Parker Anderson, was in the building at the time with his son, Lucas. Lucas most likely being the identity of Evocation, which would also make sense as to why Nunu is activated alongside of him and why a child will laugh when he gets close to the camera. When the fire erupted, Parker left the building and saved himself, leaving his son behind to be burned alive. Years later, as the building is going to be demolished after being sold, Parker takes up the night shift job. He's unable to move on. Filled with guilt, he's not capable of forgetting what he did. Of course, Lucas's soul lingers inside the daycare, still angry, unforgiving of what his father did to him. So in Dream Night, he lashes out to attack. There's honestly not a whole lot of info on this game's lore. That is quite literally all I was able to gather from it. If there's anything I'm missing or something new comes up after this video goes live, please let me know in the comments below, as I definitely feel like there's a bit more to this. But as far as I'm aware, that's all the remnants of Tubbyland has to offer. Overall, I think this game is incredibly scary. It's very good at keeping you on your toes the entire time, and while I may feel like the later nights are not balanced very well, and that there is still a large deal of RNG to have to deal with, I can't go without appreciating Avocado Dreams' attempts at mitigating it as much as possible. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think that this game is just a bad attempt at recreating the amazing experience that was Graveyard Shift at Freddy's? Let me know in the comments below. In my Tealerland video, I asked you guys what your favorite non-traditional FNAF game was, and my favorite answer was this one by GeoFreaks. They said Tyke & Sons Lumber Co., and I think that that's one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had since starting my channel, and you can see my full playthrough of it over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. The OG Five Nights at Freddy's fan game trilogies. There are plenty to talk about. One Night at Flumpty's, Five Nights at Candy's, Project Readjusted, among many more that I and many others have covered in the past and will continue to cover in the future. Of course, with all of these different trilogies, we have some masterpieces. And of course, with those masterpieces come the stinkers. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Five Nights at the Krusty Krab trilogy, which in
my opinion, is probably the most polarizing trilogy ever made, with a lot of good and a lot of bad. Join me today as we talk about it all and dive right into the Bikini Bottom's very own FNAF fan game. Before we dive into the first night, let's talk about the rundown of this game's plot. Basically, Mr. Krabs has decided to open up a brand new Krusty Krab location in the city. Instead of hiring more employees, he just gets robots of his existing employees made to run the restaurant. Don't question why Sandy and Patrick are in this game, even though they're not employees. We're just gonna gloss past that part. He then hires 2 humans to keep charge of the restaurant. Those people being the player who we play as and the phone guy. We also learn that our player's name is Eli Floyd. Cool. With that out of the way, we start our first night in the new establishment, which means it's time for us to start talking about the tools at our disposal, since listening to the phone guy talk is the most mind-numbing thing in the world. To start, we have a power system, which I know is pretty standard for these older fan games, but it's just been so long since I've actually had to deal with a normal power system in one of these games. I think I just became a little spoiled with how most of the newer games don't really have a power system. Of course, this is literally just the classic power system from FNAF 1, nothing new here. We have our doors in our office, which are standard, and our camera system, which is also basic and standard as we've come to expect. However, there is one thing that is a bit different in this game, and that's that we actually have a third door. That door actually being in your cameras connecting to a room called the fuse room. The light button to this door is completely useless as well, but I'll talk more about that in just a second. Something about the cameras is that there's no visual indicator on screen that you even have cameras. That's really just a nitpick though, and it doesn't really matter. Just flick your mouse to the bottom of the screen and you'll open them. Except they also have this really weird bug where sometimes they won't open unless you flick your mouse down twice. It's a little weird, but in all honesty, the cameras in this game are completely useless, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. The last mechanic to talk about is the flashlight. You can flash the window in front of you with it, and it's only used to deal with one threat. However, we'll also talk about that a bit later, since this specific threat hardly shows up, so there's borderline no reason to ever use the flashlight anyways. Alright, time to start talking about the threats this night introduces, and what better place to start than with SpongeBob himself. He is as simple can get. He's just this game's Bonnie. He'll make his way to your left door through the cameras, and all you have to do is close the door. This is a very old fan game, as I'm sure you're already aware, and I'm really here to talk about the second 2 games since they're far more interesting, but we have to get through this snooze fest of a game first. Fun fact, during my playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, I usually had Subway Surfers or something random playing on the side of the screen since this game is so boring. Patrick is the next threat this night introduces, and he's literally just SpongeBob, except the key difference here is that he attacks your right door instead of your left. The same rules apply here, just close the door and eventually he'll leave. Let me quickly give you the strategy for this entire game. Close both of your doors and just spam the flashlight. You're not gonna run out of power since most of the time this game bugs and just doesn't use any of it in the first place, so hooray! Moving on to night 2, 2 new threats are introduced. So let's start by talking about Sandy, who has never worked at the Krusty Krab, so I'm not really sure why she's even made to be a robot here, but whatever. Sandy starts in the supply cabinet. Her goal will be to try to get into your fuse room on camera 7. What you're supposed to do is close the door to the fuse room. However, Sandy has this super awesome glitch where she will just go through the closed door and body your fuses anyways. So it literally doesn't matter. After bodying your fuses, she will move to your right door and quite literally never move for the rest of the night. However, this sounds like it's a much bigger problem than it actually is. Let me explain why. Just like FNAF 1, the characters cannot enter your office and kill you unless you pull your cameras up. However, Five Nights at Freddy's 1 also had a Foxy character that forced you to open the cameras. This game does not have a Foxy character, and opening your cameras serves no purpose. Maybe if the door in camera 7 worked, then maybe it'd be a little bit better. But since Sandy ignores the door, you never need to open your cameras throughout the entire game, which of course means that no character will ever be able to enter your office in the first place, so you'll never lose. The other threat introduced on this night is Squiddy. He is the most interesting character we've seen so far, but that doesn't mean he's interesting at all. He's just not a boring door character. His goal is to attack the window in front of you, and he is the only character that can actually kill you even if your cameras aren't up. All you have to do is flash the window whenever he's there. A lot. Like, sometimes for 20 plus seconds, and he'll go away. However, he's also known to just reappear immediately after you get rid of him, so that's just super annoying. But he is super easy to deal with, and again, since you have no reason to open your cameras or close the doors, you're going to have plenty of power to deal with Squiddy, so you shouldn't even worry. Moving on to night 3, we only have one new threat to talk about, and on top of that, this threat is also the final threat in this game, so we're about to have 3 nights of boredom after this. The final threat is Mr. Krabs, or as my researcher wrote, and I quote, fucking Krigger. So thanks for that, Triz. Love you. Now, Mr. Krabs also does something a little different from the rest of the characters. Like all of them, he'll randomly wander around the cameras. However, he can attack you without appearing in the office doors or the window, which sounds a lot scarier than it actually is. When he reaches the stairs where Sandy is, he will stay there for the rest of the night. Now, you may be wondering to yourself, wait, wouldn't that mean I have to look at the cameras? Normally, that would be a fair assumption, but this game is actually broken beyond belief. No, you do not have to look at the cameras. All you have to do for this night is close both doors to your office and spam your flashlight. Congratulations! None of the characters will be able to kill you now. Isn't this so fun? I'm just going to cover the rest of the nights of the first game right now, all at the same time, since nights 4, 5, and 6 are just progressively harder versions of night 3. Same strategy. Close all the doors and spam the flashlight. The only characters that can kill you while the cameras are down are Squiddy and Krabs, but Krabs won't be able to get in since your door is closed, and Squiddy won't be able to kill you since you'll be spamming your flashlight. The phone call for these nights, and all previous nights, are pretty boring. The only semi-interesting call comes from night 6, which actually isn't a phone call and is instead a pre-recorded safety message, saying that the place is abandoned and that we need to get out as soon as possible. Apparently, there's some threat in the building trying to steal the formula, probably connected to Plankton in some way. That's really about it. Surprise, surprise, the first game is really boring and terrible. The game ends with a cutscene of the building burning down. We get some final text that reads, and with that, the restaurant was closed forevermore. The building simply stood there, silent and empty. In time, folks forgot of the restaurant's existence, despite the success of the first few weeks. The disaster that occurred there was swept under the rug, unnoticed for the rest of time. Well, almost. This is clearly pointing at there being a sequel to these games, and of course, look at the length of the video. There are still 2 more games for us to talk about that will hopefully be more interesting than this one. Spoiler alert, they are more interesting, but let's dive into them just to see how much more interesting they actually are. All right, moving on to the second game, we see Five Nights at the Chum Buckets. The plot of this game picks up after the first, where the sole survivor of the building fire was taken captive by the creator of the robots, presumably Plankton, I would imagine. We wake up trapped inside of a building and have to defend ourselves for 5 nights. The mechanics and tools at our disposal in this game are actually a lot more interesting than the previous game, and if any of you have seen anything from this series of games, I'm willing to bet this is probably the game you've seen, as it's arguably the best in the entire series. To start, we have our doors in our office and the flashlight in front of us like the last game. We'll get into them a bit more in just a second. The first new mechanic I want to talk about is the vents. In the cameras, you can access them, except a problem that I had was figuring out where the hell they were. And why was that so hard for me? Well, the game doesn't actually have a proper button for them. Clicking the box that has U labeled on it will open up the vent cameras, which I was never expecting at all, because never in a million years has a fan game had the U section a clickable camera, so that took me a very long time to figure out. Only one of these vents can be closed at a time, but we'll talk a little bit more about them later. This time around, we have unlimited power. However, we can only use 2 things at a time. This includes your lights, your doors, and your cameras. This is actually pretty cool, I can't lie, and it provides a very good balancing strategy for you to figure out, except, oops, I was also able to bug this game really badly and found a way to use 3 things at a time, at all times, making this game significantly easier than it was supposed to be. This glitch has something to do with your flashlight and how and when you turn it on, but you can force it to stay on the whole night without the game counting it as being used, so you have a perfect counter to one of the other threats we'll talk about later. Now, there is a way for you to use even more things at once, and this is by using a system called overdrive. It's a big red button in front of your cameras. When you press it, you'll get 10 seconds where you'll be able to use an additional power using item. After the 10 seconds, you have to wait 15 seconds before you can use the overdrive again. If you're using 3 power using items, when the overdrive runs out, it will randomly choose a tool you are using to disconnect, which unfortunately for me was always my busted up JBL speaker that constantly sounds like it's underwater. Your flashlight is what you use to check the hallway in front of you for any unwanted visitors. Of course, like I said before, this flashlight can be glitched. The exact way you do it is by turning on the flashlight and then skipping the phone call. It seems like skipping the phone call runs a line of code to reset all power usage to 0, except it seems to not run the line that shuts your light off. So by doing this, you can use it the whole night without thinking. If you ever turn it off and then back on throughout the night, it will go back to working like normal. So just don't turn it off and we're chilling. Moving on to the doors. They can obviously be closed, but if they're closed for too long, they'll overheat. However, something you'll notice about the overheating is that it literally takes so fucking long for this to ever happen, so you really won't have to worry about it that much. Even when they do overheat, it just takes 15 seconds before you're able to close them again, so it's not a super big deal. Something we should mention about the doors before we move on is that if there is someone in the doorway, you won't be able to see them unless your flashlight is on. Having your flashlight on will also make the light in the doorways flicker for some reason, which makes no sense at all since your hallway light doesn't flicker and the light in your doorways is quite literally just your hallway light. So not sure what that's about, but we can move past that. Moving on to the cameras, and oh my god, this place has a lot of fucking cameras. It's insane. There are 4 floors to this building, all with their own set of cameras. Basically, all you need to know is every time you open your cameras, they default to the ground floor, and the only cameras you really need to worry about is the camera you default to and your right hallway, but I'll get into that a bit more later. We could talk about all of the cameras in this game, but there are so many and 98% of them are completely useless. Hooray! Something I should mention is that this game has 2 phone guys. The first is the guy from the first game again, and the second is a super evil man that makes me wet my britches whenever he speaks. Good phone guy is freaking out when he gets a hold of us, saying he saw the flames from the old building and had no idea where we were. Before he can say any more, the line is cut and we get to hear from bad phone guy. So of course, I do the only logical thing I can think of and immediately defecate my pants. He has a big villain monologue. I don't really care. He just says we have to survive 5 days and he'll let us go for some reason. Whatever. Let's move on to talking about the threats this night introduces. Night 1 only introduces 2 threats, that being SpongeBob and Patrick like the first game. So let's start with SpongeBob first, who in this game upgraded from Twink mode to Giga Chad mode, because just look at him. He's so buff, it's insane. SpongeBob is super basic. Again, roam the cameras and eventually make it to your left door. All you have to do is close it and eventually he'll give you a visual cue that he left. But I'll talk more about the visual cue in just a second. His jump scare is him bitch slapping you, so I think that's pretty cool. Patrick is much the same, except he attacks your right door instead of your left. Now, the interesting part about these guys is when the door is closed, the light to the closed door will flicker. When it stops flickering, this is how you'll know that whoever was at the door is no longer there and you're safe to open the door again. This took me forever to figure out, and I didn't notice it until my second playthrough when researching for this video. So let's make sure we keep this in mind for later. Moving on to night 2, it introduces 2 new threats, and it's the same 2 threats from the previous game that introed on this night, Squiddy and Sandy. Sandy is by far the most interesting character in this entire game. She's also the only character that doesn't attack you directly. Instead, she attacks the generator that's in your sub-camera BF2. When she gets into this room, she won't attack the generator immediately, but after a bit of her being in there, you'll notice the whole building will start to flicker. This is how you know she's finally attacking. When this happens, all you have to do is turn on overdrive and this will electrocute her and make her leave for a while. I actually really like this mechanic because using overdrive is super helpful throughout the game, but now you really have to be wary of when you use it, since if you use it to deal with somebody and then Sandy attacks, you might not have enough time to be able to use it again before she completely destroys the generator. This is Such good synergy, I actually really like him. Obviously, Squiddy is the other threat introduced on this night, and he's pretty simple. He's this game's vent character, and he does exactly what you'd think he does. He'll make his way to your vents to try and attack you from above. All you have to do is close the vent he's trying to crawl through before he crawls through it, and we'll have no problem. He doesn't make a sound cue upon entering your vents though, so you will have to constantly check. Something interesting about him is that he glitches through the vent door when you close it, so that's kind of interesting. He also probably has my favorite character design throughout the entire game. I just like the long, lanky character type thing. I'm sure you can tell. Moving on to night 3, we of course only have one new threat to talk about, as this game is introducing characters in the exact same order as the first game. This character is Mr. Krabs. He is by far the easiest character to deal with throughout this entire game. He will try to attack through the window in front of you just like Squiddy from the first game. However, instead of spamming your light on him, all you have to do is hold it on him for him to go away. Also, if your flashlight is on, he won't be able to enter the window until it is turned off. So if you glitched your flashlight at the start of the night like you should be doing every time, then Krabs will be unable to ever show up at your window. And even if he somehow did, since you don't have to flash him and your light is always on, you'll deal with him without trying every time anyways. During this night, we get another call from the good phone guy, who says we only need to hold out for a few more nights as he tries to pinpoint our location. He promises to get us out of here safely, and of course gets cut off by the poop in my pants spawning evil phone guy. Evil guy tells us that the boss, probably Plankton, gave him a note that reads, "Krabs is a backstabbing traitor." No idea what that could possibly have to do with anything, but sure. Moving on to night 4, we do have some new threats to talk about, those being Phantom Squiddy, Phantom SpongeBob, and Phantom Patrick. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, you really have to try to die to these 3, since you will probably never do it by accident. I actually didn't even know these 3 existed until doing research for this video, but the wiki states, if you look at camera 18, 5, or 9 for too long, then you will see one of the 3 phantoms. If you exit the monitor, the phantoms will appear in the window outside of the office, and they'll kill you as soon as you pull the cameras back up. Now, usually this would seem like an interesting mechanic, but the 3 cameras this happens on literally have no purpose, so you never need to look at them in the first place. Again, you have to actively try to die to these 3. They're not a problem at all. We get another phone call from Good Guy tonight. He says that he's found our location and he's on his way. He starts another sentence with the word but before we can even hear what he was going to say, the call gets cut and we hear from Dr. Evil again. He says, "Doesn't he know it's rude to interrupt?" Which is brutally ironic considering he just interrupted the other phone guy, but whatever. He says that today is our last night and that a deal is a deal. He says he doesn't get his paycheck until we die, so it sounds like he's going to be ramping up the animatronic AI, and that he definitely did. The strategy for this night is simple. Start with the flashlight glitch and then just check your vent cams and your right hall cam and you'll easily get the win every time. But even after we win, despite night 5 supposedly being the last night, we of course still have a night 6 to talk about. Night 6 begins with a phone call from Good Guy. He says he's arrived at the building, but the doors are bolted tight. He tells us to hold out a little longer as he thinks of another way to get us out. No phone call from Evil Guy this time, and we just get thrown right into night 6. The strategy for this night is the same as night 5, so just do that again. This night really isn't a problem at all. There's not much of interest to even talk about. This night does split the game into 2 endings, the first being just surviving night 6. Afterwards, we get a pretty cool cutscene, but I honestly think it's better if you just watch it for yourself.
Hello? I can see you through the glass. The doors, they're stuck fast. I can't get it open. Could you try from your side?
So yeah, before we can get out, we get fucking murked by the robots and our friend basically just gets to watch us die. So that's not fucked up at all. So that brings up the question, how on earth do we get the true ending? Well, that comes in the form of 720 mode because of course it does. 720 mode really isn't that bad. It's obviously the hardest night you'll play, but the same strategy from night 6 applies here. So you'll really just need a small tiny bit of luck and this night is a cakewalk. Once again, after completing it, we get a cutscene and just take a look for yourself. So yeah, I don't really know what the hell that was. I don't know if this is supposed to be our player or the good guy, maybe even the evil guy. Again, no idea. I don't know why they reached out to Squiddy, and I also have no idea why Squiddy is the character we see in this cutscene over someone else. Very weird stuff, but that is where the second game comes to a close, and we can move on to the third and final game in the series. The third game is by far the best in the series, even though I'm willing to bet that the second game is probably the most well-known. Upon loading into the game, we're greeted to a cutscene of Hammerhead, this game's main antagonist, dragging us somewhere. The plot for this game is pretty simple. Hammerhead is mad he never got to meet us in person. I don't know who the fuck Hammerhead is, by the way, but whatever. He states he wants to stop what he's doing, but he's not in control of his own body anymore, whatever that means. He dwells on his newly found power, and the cutscene ends. Loading into the office, there is a lot we have to learn, so I'll break it down as best I can. And there's no better place to start than the tools at our disposal. Hooray! This is the third time I'm talking about these in a single video. Aren't you guys so excited to hear me talk about them? Well, too bad, because here we go. Let's start by talking about power. This time around, it's once again limited. However, it is possible to recharge it. In the drawer of our desk, we have a bunch of spare fuses. However, you only need 2 to turn the power on. Behind us is a fuse box and a lever for the power. The fuse box has 3 switches. When the power is on, you will always be using 20% of your power no matter what. There's nothing you can do about that. The first fuse switch is for the hallway lights. These are how we're going to deal with certain threats we'll talk about later. This takes up 10% of your power usage, and every time you use the hallway lights, they instantly drain 7% of your power. The second switch covers your cameras, which are actually going to be super useful in this game, unlike the previous 2. Using your camera uses 25% of your power usage. And the third switch is for the reactor coolant. This is because your office actually has a core that needs to be cooled or else it just explodes. You can turn all of your switches on at the same time. However, as I'm sure you could imagine, this will absolutely tank your power. You can use the switch to turn off all of the power, which will recharge it, but you really shouldn't keep it off for too long. You should also always make sure you're holding on to 2 fuses so that when you need to replace them, you don't first need to go grab them. The next tool I want to talk about is the tape player. It's connected to our power system, however, it doesn't actually use any of the power. As long as your power isn't shut off, then you can use the tape player. The tape player can be turned off, however, if you keep it turned off, then the phantoms will attack you, so just keep it on. Yeah, it makes a bit of noise, but that's really not that big of a deal. Moving on to the cameras, in which there are really only 3 reasons to ever look at them. Those being the core room and your left and right hallways. There's one other cam that's a little useful, that being the vent cam, but surprise, surprise, the only threat that goes in there makes a sound cue, so you don't really need to check this camera anyways, as long as you have ears. Now we should talk about your core reactor EMP. I told you guys there's a lot to learn in this game, and I wasn't lying. On your desk, you'll see a big red button like this is Deal or No Deal with Baldy Mandel. Pressing it will release an EMP in your office core. This takes no power, however, it does blow one of your fuses when you use it. I'll talk a bit more about it once we talk about the single threat that actually interacts with this mechanic. Finally, we need to talk about your exposure meter. Something amazing I can mention right now is that this game has no find them on the camera mechanics, which this game easily could have implemented. I'm just creaming myself just thinking about it. I can't lie. Once we reach night 2, we get the ability to increase our exposure meter. 2 threats will be able to interact with this, but of course, I'll talk about them when they become relevant. Just be patient. Now, instead of a phone call, we actually get to watch a little video before each night, which is pretty cool. Usually, this just explains how to deal with the threats of the night, but the very first one actually has some exposition. It explains that we are in the Type 63 nuclear power station, and we have to make sure that the power in this station isn't lost. Also, apparently, this takes place during a war between America and I think Russia. I think it's Russia. I don't remember. I don't really know if it even said it, but there we go. But I'm not really sure why defending it is our problem or why Hammerhead dragged us here to deal with this, but sure, we'll deal with it. Now, let's start talking about the 3 threats this night introduces. The first we'll talk about are the phantoms, which I've kind of already mentioned. Just play the tape player throughout the night and they won't bother you. Hammerhead is obviously this game's main threat, so we'll talk about him first. He's actually the only character that isn't a SpongeBob character, at least I think. I haven't seen the show in a long time, but I'm pretty sure this dude does not appear in it. But feel free to tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. Hammerhead is actually the phone guy, and apparently after Squiddy killed him, which is what I imagine was happening in the final cutscene of the second game, his brain was implanted into the Hammerhead animatronic. So now here we are dealing with him. And dealing with him is super simple. He'll make his way to either of your hallways. All you have to do is flash him and he'll go away. No big deal at all. He doesn't make a sound cue when he arrives, which is why checking the cameras is so important in this game. The next threat to talk about is called the Amalgam. This is a hybrid of SpongeBob, Patrick, and Mr. Krabs all at once, which is disgusting, by the way. Kind of reminds me of that one SpongeBob episode where Squiddy and the Bob merged together. Just foul. He's quite literally exactly the same as Hammerhead. Can attack both of your hallways, just track him on the cameras and flash him when he enters a hallway, and it's GG. Something about all of these games, as I'm sure you've noticed, is that there's nothing to do post nights. No cutscenes, no dialogue, no mini games. So we can just move right into the next night, which, just in case you can't count, puts us into night 2 this time around. Night 2 introduces 2 new threats, one of them actually being a character we've never seen before. So let's talk about the one we have seen before, that being Squiddy. He's one of the characters that attacks your vents, just like in the last game. You can watch the vent camera, but again, he makes a very obvious sound cue when he's coming to the office through the vents, so you don't really need to be checking the camera for him. The way you deal with him is easy and really feels like One Night at Flumpty's 2. All you have to do is turn around and turn the power off before he arrives. He'll drop down in front of you for a few seconds and then go away. Obviously, if you don't turn the lights off fast enough, then he'll just quickly fill your exposure meter, and if that fills up completely, then he'll start digging in your butt, twin. Get it? Because there was that Mr. Krabs start digging in your butt twin meme. No? Okay, I just end myself. Let's move on.
Mr. Krabs, start digging in your butt, twin.
That's so stupid. The other threat this night introduces is Karen, which of course we haven't seen yet, so that's pretty cool. I guess when you merge 3 of your characters into one character, you kind of have to add some new ones, don't you? Anyways, Karen is more of a nuisance character rather than an actual threat. She will randomly place pop-ups on any of your monitors, slowly trying to hack you. Obviously, just close them. However, something interesting about her is that she can still attack even when your power is off. But luckily, she does play a sound cue. If you let her hack you completely, then Sandy will easily be able to murk your shit. So just don't let that happen. At this point in the game, you won't really need a crazy strategy. Just check the hallway cameras for Hammerhead and the Amalgam, watch out for pop-ups, and deal with Squiddy when you need to. Pretty easy so far, so let's jump right into night 3. Night 3 only introduces 1 new threat, but I'm willing to bet you can guess who it is. If you said Corey from Corey in the House, then congratulations, because you probably just said the stupidest shit you could have said. It's Sandy. Sandy is the new threat on this night. Sandy is the only character in this game that can attack your core. So of course, this is where that red button comes into play. She will randomly appear in your core camera and start attacking it. It's also on this night where your core will get a health bar at the bottom of the screen. If it goes all the way down, then
happen, I'm sure you could guess. You lose. When you see her attacking the core, all you have to do is press the EMP button on your desk and this will make her go away. However, doing this does also blow up one of your fuses, so you'll have to replace that soon after. Pretty cool overall, but sadly she is the last new addition to this entire game. Night 4 adds nothing new to the gameplay loop, just being a harder version of Night 3, but on this night we do get to watch a video that shows something pretty cool. In this video, we learned that the US won whatever war they were taking part in, and that means we will no longer be needed in the place we're in. So then that brings up the question of what the fuck am I still doing here if the US won the war? I don't know. The video says that officials will be coming to our sites soon, hopefully to discharge us, but that means we still have some more nights to survive through. Strategy is obviously the same on this night. However, night 5 is where this game cranks shit up to the max. Finally, the previous 2 games have been so boring, but night 5 in this game is actually pretty awesome and serves to be the boss fight night. Hammerhead basically just says he's God or something and then goes AWOL. He takes the role of every character we've seen so far while still having some other attacks of his own. So let's go over all of them. His first attack is his usual attack with a small upgrade. You still have to flash him in the hallways, but if you don't do it fast enough, he'll quickly fill your exposure meter. And no, turning off the lights like Squiddy does not prevent the meter from increasing. This guy has night vision or something going on, I have no idea. Here's something really awesome about Hammerhead. For some reason, he gets the ability to pump fake the shit out of you during this night, meaning that if he attacks your left hallway, he has the chance to run through your office just to get to the right side and attack from there, making you waste a flash on the left side only to then make you have to flash the right side. He thankfully gives you plenty of time to process this, so that's nice, but it's also completely random whether he'll fake you or not, so you really have to stay on your toes. His third attack is really just Squiddy, by far his easiest since he still makes the sound cue, and for some reason during this attack he decides to turn off the night vision, since turning off your power for this attack will prevent the exposure meter from increasing. His fourth attack has him take Sandy's attack and throw haymakers at your core, except he deals damage way faster than Sandy did. Same thing as her though, just press the EMP button and you'll be chillin'. Just gotta be a lot faster than you've been used to being. His final attack is Karen's attack, just adding viruses to your monitors. However, he can do this at the same time as any of his other attacks. When did he get the ability to do this? I have no idea, but we'll deal with it. Obviously, Hammerhead is the only threat on night 5, and this is because he murked every other character. Why did he do this? If the goal was to kill us and they could have helped, that I have no idea. That part doesn't really make sense to me, but I suppose we can slide that little plot hole under the rug. This night is by far the most enjoyable part of the entire trilogy. It's just a shame that the rest of the games couldn't have been as interesting as this one was, since this game was actually really fucking cool. After completing night 5, we get one final cutscene where our player is talking. Just take a look.
Hello, hello. I always wondered why you answered the phone like that. You know, I wasn't sure this was how the story would end. Hell, I barely even believe any of it happened at all. I was broke, living in LA, and I accepted a job with shit pay just to make rent. Man, does that sound like the start of a B-grade horror flick? Doesn't make it much better that I was in a Nickelodeon-themed restaurant. Honestly, I'd have made more money if I took the ad and wrote the movie it was begging me to write, but nope. Instead, I called them up and aced the interview like an absolute sucker. Go me, I guess. I wasn't even there a day before I realized things were off. Apparently, the whole thing was caused by this one guy with ties to TBS. I think he and Eugene from Viacom had been feuding privately over some dirty investments, and you and I got caught in the middle. After the incident in the power plant, I woke up 3 months later in Iceland. Apparently, I made a break for it after you went psycho and got away. I still don't know how. I got picked up by a fisherman and his crew. I tried to tell my story, but, of course, no one believed me. How could they? I was stalked halfway across the ocean by SpongeBob characters. What else am I supposed to say? I still think I'm insane just writing this, but I don't even think I could make this up if I desperately wanted to. I had myself admitted as soon as I got back to the States. The night terrors just wouldn't stop, and I needed all the help I could get. I could see its face. Your face. Whenever I closed my eyes or walked into a dark room. How screwed up is that? Well, it's no matter now, I hope. The doc's given me the go-ahead to be discharged. Thankfully, they've got a job lined up for me. I'm a night guard. Jesus. Why did I even say yes to that? Well, it should be fine. I'm just watching a mall in some backwater town in Oregon. Myriad Square Gardens, I think it's called. Hopefully no more mascots, no more robots, and no more fear. Anyway, this is my last journal entry from the hospital, so wish me luck back out in the wide world. From the Journal of Eli Floyd, former night guard at the Krusty Krab-themed restaurant in Santa Monica. May 9th, 2007. Adios, Hammerhead.
So there we go. With that final cutscene, the Krusty Krab trilogy comes to a close. The final game does have a custom night and a nightmare mode, but you don't unlock any other interesting story bits from doing so I'm not going to talk about them. Overall, I think this trilogy actually tells a really interesting story. Devoid of the overused child murder, I think it tells a narrative that I've never seen before. It's so simple, yet so enjoyable to watch it all get laid out in front of you. And while I do feel like the first two games in the series are pretty weak, I do think the third game really pulls everything together quite nicely. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think that this entire series was completely dookie booty? Let me know in the comments below. In my last side video, I asked you guys what your favorite TCG was and why, and my favorite answer was everyone who said Magic the Gathering, since that is personally my TCG of choice as well.
What makes a horror game truly scary? Is it jump scares, atmosphere, build up? Well, of course, all of these things together and more is what builds up a horror game to be something amazing. But I think if I had to choose one word to answer the question, what makes a horror game truly scary, my answer would be realism. In order for your game to be truly scary, I feel like the player has to be able to connect with your game on a personal level. And what better way to make that happen than to make the environment around them feel real? The game we'll be talking about today, I feel, pulled this off almost perfectly. A Five Nights at Freddy's fan game that was able to capture the real feel of an office, an environment, and realistic means of self-defense in a situation that seems so dire, you'd think you'd never be able to make it out to tell the tale. The game we'll be covering today is Freddy's Reanimated, the most realistic FNAF game ever made. Reanimated does not begin like most FNAF games tend to. This game opens to a dark void. We're told that when we die, we will be brought back to this void and that we won't be remembered. However, if we are to be remembered, what is the name we'd like etched into our headstone? And it's here where we can actually choose a name for our character. Afterwards, we're booted into the menu where we can begin the game. As the game begins, we're given a pretty eerie opening cinematic, something pretty uncommon with Five Nights at Freddy's games. It serves to show how we found the job online on a listing site to work as a security guard for 5 days in an abandoned pizzeria. Fantastic! I know myself personally would never accept a job that I know for a fact won't even last a week, but hey, different strokes for different folks, I suppose. With that, we're thrown into the first night where I can talk about hands down one of my favorite parts about this game. Loading into the office, we're hit with something crazy. This game looks real. The office looks like an actual office, with objects placed around that actually look like they should be there, not just a random assortment of items like we typically see in FNAF games. And the sound design is amazing. This game looks real, it sounds real, and I think that's one of the big reasons why people love this game so much. It tries to feel real. Watch for when he's closest. He can be tricked easily. What the fuck does that mean, bro? Holy shit. Oh my god. What the fuck? This looks sick. Of course, like most FNAF games tend to do, we have a phone call on each night to listen to. Instead of the usual where the phone guy at least sounds somewhat like they know what they're doing, the phone guy in Reanimated sounds baked out of his fucking mind.
Speaking of which, the only reason we have a security guard job right now is because the place is being demolished soon. So we don't want any funny business going on at night.
He tells us the basics of our camera. Who cares? That's my job. What he does say that's actually of note is that the building we're in has been abandoned for over a decade. And the only reason we're watching over it now is because the building is about to be demolished. And for some reason, they're concerned about funny business going on because of that. I have no idea what funny business is supposed to mean, My first guess was people breaking in to steal something, but then I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. People could have been stealing from this place for the last 10 plus years. Why would they all of a sudden decide they needed to do this now? Maybe it means graffiti, but the place is being demolished, so who cares? This is such a weird thing to latch onto, but I just feel like it's strange to mention this now. And it does actually bring up a good question. Why would you hire someone to guard a building that won't exist in 5 days? But you never hired a guard for the past 10 years that it was abandoned. It almost makes you wonder if they were expecting something to happen. And maybe that's why they're demolishing it. Before I get into any of the characters, let's talk about the controls of this game and the 3 tools at our disposal. You can only look in 2 directions in this game, at your computer and at your door and window. Something super interesting about this door is that it is actually just a door, which is pretty scary in a game like this where your doors are mainly known as your only means of defense. You can pull the blinds of your window down if you want to, and when I first found that out, I was reasonably concerned as to why. I see this right here, and I know this game's about to be fucked. I know this game is about to be so fucked, dude. It's just a normal fucking door. Bro, these motherfuckers gonna open the shit out of that thing. And we'll get into why in just a minute. But first, I really want to talk about the cameras and why they serve to be one of the most difficult things to deal with in this entire game. Upon looking at the cameras, you'll realize there's no typical camera map and buttons. Instead, there's just arrows at the bottom of the cameras that you can click to move from one camera to the next, fairly slowly. This is brilliant in 2 ways. With the realism approach that this game is taking. Looking at the surroundings, we can tell that this game takes place a pretty long time ago in 2013. We can tell this because of the confirm window at the beginning of the game being Windows 7 and the fact that the game tells us. But I just wanted to seem cool by pointing out that I knew what the Windows 7 UI was. Shut up. And yes, 2013 was a long time ago. I know for some of you it may not feel like it, but it was 12 years ago. That's older than some of my audience who, let's be honest, really shouldn't be watching my videos. Mom and dad, monitor your kids, fuckhead. Knowing this and knowing that the game is aiming to be realistic, opting to use a slow, outdated system like this is genius. Even if, yes, I think it's AIDS and very annoying. However, once we start talking about the way this game plays, I'll bring up why I think the way these cameras are set up is needed. Anyways, on to the reason why I think this is as annoying as it is. Mainly because it's not consistent in one way that I would expect it to be. There are 9 cameras in total to surf through. When you reach camera 9, if you press the forward arrow again, you will be sent back to camera 1. That makes sense. So, what do you think happens if you press the back arrow while on camera 1? If you said you go back to camera 9, you would be completely wrong because the back arrow doesn't even fucking exist on camera 1. Why is this the case? I have no idea. If it was consistent either way, this wouldn't bother me, but you can cycle in one direction and not the other. And yes, this is noticeable and it does matter. Now we can finally talk about the first threat this game throws at you. I'm sure you could have guessed who it is. That's right, it's Chica. I lied, it's Bonnie. Of course it's Bonnie. Surprisingly, each character in this game attacks you in a unique way. Even though we only have 3 tools, this game somehow manages to make each character vastly different from one another, and I think that's amazing. Bonnie's main goal is to sneak into your office. He will move around the cameras until he gets to your door. And when he gets to your door, be ready. Close that motherfucker! Oh my god. Dude, literally fuck that. Literally fuck that. The moment I saw this, I knew that this was getting a Dxtr White video. And even the people in my comments over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, knew that this game was getting a White video. I actually had another video lined up for this week, and I've chosen to postpone it so that I could talk about this game first, since I love it so much. It's moments like these that FNAF games need. Once Bonnie is at your window, all you have to do is hold down your blinds until you hear his big fat feet galloping away. Not an overtly difficult character to deal with, but really paves the way for what the rest of this game has to offer. Luckily for us, there's a post-night minigame section after each night that we get to talk about.
But hold up, Dxtr. Don't you usually hate post-night minigames?
Yeah, typically I do. However, this game's post-night minigames don't make me want to shove a porcupine in my asshole backwards. There's no repetitive 8-bit minigames, and again, what we're doing in these minigames still feels realistic. After completing the night, we get another call from the phone guy. He asks us before we head home to go into the storage room and find an old computer, which we can use to upload some old pictures and footage of the building to the cloud. He says he wants to upload some of the interesting stuff to his personal blog, which I'm sure violates some sort of contract, but who am I to care? I break the law all the time. For example, if I was in the UK, I'd probably be arrested on the spot because of the language I choose to use. Anyways, something I think is cool is that we actually get to walk into the back room. We don't just miraculously get placed there. This will become important later, by the way. After walking into the storage room, we can access the computer and start uploading files to the cloud. You'll notice that you can turn to the exit of the room. For now, it's unknown why. After waiting for ages for the upload to finish, we walk out of the storage room and finish out our shift, moving on to night 2. On night 2, we get another call from the phone guy, where we find out that our player is actually trying to do something about the fact that the characters are moving. Apparently, we sent an email to the phone guy explaining that we saw Bonnie moving. We called him the creepy rabbit, which seemed to frustrate the phone guy a little bit, to the point he corrected us on his name.
Oh yeah, and that creepy rabbit you were talking about, he has a name. It's Bonnie.
Sure, this could have just been playful, but I get the funny feeling it's not. The threat introduced on this night is Chica, arguably the least threatening character in this entire game. Chica will randomly wander around your cameras, and she has the chance to charge at your door from 2 of those cameras. Except the difference with Chica approaching your door is that closing the blinds will not stop her. She can attack on cameras 2 and camera 4. You can tell when she's going to attack based on the position she's standing in. On camera 2, she'll be very close to the camera, and in camera 4, she'll be on the very left side of the camera. When she is in either of these 2 positions, you will need to use the flash button on your cameras to flash said camera and scare her away. You may be wondering why there's a flash on these cameras. That's not very realistic, and Dxtr, you told me this whole game was realistic. And now hear me out. Usually I'd agree with you, but I want you to take that concern like a boomerang and launch it as far away from you as possible. Night 2's post-night minigame has us go back to the computer in the storage room to fiddle with the power system. Now this you can complain about because I have no idea what the hell that is supposed to mean. And actually doing the task doesn't really answer anything either. We are shown a series of sliders that we have to quite literally fiddle with. Apparently doing so will reset the power. How do you tell you've put the sliders in the correct spot? Well, you just have to do trial and error. Move one slider a single place, press reset, and if it turns red, change it again. This is very monotonous. If only there was something else on this night to cure my boredom. I don't want to look back. What did I tell you? It's moments like these that really make these FNAF games stand out. To any future FNAF devs, do cool shit. Your game does not have to be stupidly hard to be memorable. It just has to do cool things. And this is some of the coolest shit I've ever seen. While looking at the computer, Bonnie will slowly try to creep closer and closer to you. You will have to look back at him lest he shoot his Jeep juice all over your spine. You can actually watch him walk backwards while you look at him, almost like he knows you've noticed he's moved, and is attempting to readjust himself so you go back to looking away. What the fuck? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my fucking god! Did you see that shit? Motherfucker just crip walked back, he moonwalked. It's honestly some of the creepiest shit I've ever seen come out of a FNAF game, and I love it. After completing this minigame and turning towards the door, you'll realize that Bonnie has gone away. Obviously getting bored of you because you're boring. So all we have to do now is walk out of the building. You want me to walk out that motherfucking door? You honestly want me to walk out that fucking door? I mean, I'll do it, but fuck. Oh my fucking god! This game is fucking awesome, by the way. But now it's time to move on to night 3. On night 3, the phone guy says he got another email from us because we told him that Chica was now moving too. He said that in case anyone else starts moving, we should use the flash because they're probably not used to bright lights. Again, I find this weird coming from him. And come to think of it, why would any of the animatronics from any FNAF game be sensitive to light? They're always on stage where bright lights are beaming on them almost constantly. So I just find it odd how much the phone guy seems to want us to do this. He ends off the call by stating he wanted to tell us a story, but he's out of time. Maybe we'll hear that story another day. For now, let me tell you the story of Sparky the dog. You remember, the hoax character that was said to be in Five Nights at Freddy's 1 way back in the day? Yeah, for some reason he's in this game. And he's the threat introduced on night 3. His mechanics are simple, but really start to show how annoying this camera system is going to become. Occasionally, Sparky will bark. When he does, he will be teleported to a random camera. You will have to find which camera he's on and flash him. Am I a huge fan of this mechanic? No, not at all. And I'm really not a fan when I have to meticulously scrape through each camera one by one. Overall, so far, it's not going to be all too bad. Keep your eyes on Chica, find Sparky every once in a while, and occasionally hold the blinds for Bonnie. Simple sugar, not so bad. But trust me, it'll get bad pretty damn fast. After completing the shift, we get another call from the phone guy. He tells us the cameras have been acting strange, and that we should use the computer in the storage room to reset them. He also curiously mentions that he has remote access to the camera system. So that brings up the question, why the fuck are we even here? If someone else is able to watch the cameras in the safety of their own home, where there aren't a bunch of murder robots trying to butt fuck them, who cares? Let's just finish our shift and head to the storage room.
I'll see you on the flip side.
I'll see you in the grave, asshole. So let me tell you a little something. Oh my fucking God! I love this game. I don't know if that was obvious or not. Entering the storage room is when we enter by far the most difficult minigame section in this entire game. I'm not kidding. We're tasked with literally just holding a button down on the PC. Once it charges all the way, we'll reset a camera and move on to the next one. However, when you let go, the bar will very quickly decrease. That may not sound so bad. It would only be bad if we had a certain purple distraction trying to blow our backs out now, wouldn't it? What the fuck? What? Bro, he's fast as shit. Bonnie is the sole reason why this minigame is so AIDS. Bonnie, for some reason, thought that today was the day he was going to take the Rock Lee ankle weights off and show us his true speed. Bonnie is so astronomically fast during this minigame, it's not even funny. 3, 2, 3. Oh my motherfucking God. Oh my fucking God. Oh my fucking God. Can I break his knees? You have maybe 2 seconds of time to look at the screen before he kills you, so you have to be fast. And what adds to the difficulty of this night, the hitbox of the progress bar you have to click and hold. Swiping your mouse back and forth to check on Bonnie, then moving back to the computer is insanity. And when you come back, you have to hold the position of your mouse on this tiny little progress bar and continue to hold. But you can only hold for maybe 1 second before you have to turn back around to Bonnie and wait for him to walk all the way back to the door. And keep in mind, the progress bar is decreasing every time you look away, so you're really just fucked. And once you complete a camera is when you notice you have to fix 3 more. And if you ever die to Bonnie, go back into them all over again. Fuck you. This minigame took me around 30 minutes to finally complete. It's unironically the second hardest canonical challenge in this game, and I would love to have to never do it again. But one more interesting detail about this minigame. The final camera you fix briefly shows Foxy in the camera. Oh boy, I hope that's not foreshadowing or something. After completing that hell, we don't have to almost get touched by any robots on our way out and are free to move on to night 4. The phone guy calls us and fucking rambles about some bullshit I don't care about. He says that there was an ancient civilization that archaeologists found, and those researchers were later haunted by handprints of the ancient civilization. Again, I really don't give a fuck. This is purely symbolic for the story of the game, which I'll talk about later. But this was the story he was itching to tell us. I would rather itch my balls than hear him talk about that again. The threat introduced on this night is Foxy. Spoiler alert, the camera was foreshadowing something. Foxy acts exactly how you think Foxy would act. You have to look at him to stall him, and if you don't, he'll run to your office. But as I'm sure you could have guessed, he too doesn't care about your door. Watching him will push him back, so you know, just make sure you're doing that. Something of note is how Foxy breaks the cycle you've been really trying to build up throughout the game, forcing you to develop a new one. Up until this point, watching Chica has probably been your main focus, but now with the character that demands even more attention, I'm sure you could figure out why Foxy will put a big wrench into your plans. Now you have to find a way to constantly watch Foxy and Chica, and lucky us, Foxy is on camera 6, several cameras away from Chica's attack cameras. This game knows what it's doing. Sure, it's frustrating, but it's also genius. In this post-night minigame, we're told we have to fix a ventilation problem. Phone guy tells us it's just turning a few knobs. The ventilation room is in a door right off of the storage room, so the storage room is where we go.
I don't see anyone yet. Hi, Bonnie. Were you expecting me to go there? Were you expecting to cut me off? Sorry, asshole. Not gonna happen.
Is that not horrifying? Bonnie is standing right next to the computer we've been going to every night. He's starting to remember our patterns, getting to the computer before we can in hopes that he could jump us. But lucky for us, the computer is not where we need to go this time. Entering into the ventilation room, we have 6 knobs in front of us and 2 large vents to our left and right. Pretty reminiscent of the office from Pizzeria Simulator. I wonder if anything is going to come through those vents to try and kill us. Silly little viewer. Of course there is. This minigame's threat is Foxy. Throughout the minigame, Foxy will make quiet sound cues in whichever vent he's about to attack from. When you hear him, all you have to do is turn to stare at him until he goes away. Meanwhile, you have to painfully slowly turn these 6 knobs, which will take a very long time. Because as you get closer to having them all finish, it seems that Foxy will attack you more and more frequently. After completing this task, we can leave with no other funny business taking place. Finally, we're left with one last night. One last thing standing in our way, and this game holds no punches in introducing it. Before you is something long forgotten. Something that was once loved and cherished, but now it lies broken. It is left abandoned. You know what becomes of something long forgotten. It dies a second death. It grows cold. It is unmoving. But what if some things don't wish to be forgotten? Do you know what happens when something refuses to be forgotten? It becomes angry. Anger is eternal. Anger grows, it festers, it burns, it writhes, and then it finally happens. It is given new life. It returns to us. It haunts us. However, it doesn't return as it once was. It returns as something else, something unrecognizable. Through its anger, it is reanimated. And with that, we're given one final message. The flash slows him down, Godspeed. When I first read that message, it gave me chills for some reason. It's like just by reading that, I knew what I was about to experience. Absolute agony. We get another call from the phone guy. He explains his reasoning for why he thinks the robots are alive. He thinks they're angry that they've been forgotten about and left abandoned for years, and he couldn't be more right. Night 5 introduces Freddy. Holy fucking shit, Freddy. Freddy is by far the most dangerous character in this entire game. When Freddy moves forward, he will never move backwards. And once he gets to your office, it's over for you. Yo, get the fuck away from that fucking door! You get the fuck away from that door! What? Oh, fuck, dude. Freddy is a dick. wraps. How do you stall Freddy? By using the flash, of course. When you flash Freddy, he will cover his eyes. Something interesting to note is that Freddy is the only character to be animated on the cameras. Such a small detail, but a detail I think is really cool. If you really want to make sure Freddy doesn't move, you'll have to time his intervals since they don't vary. And make sure you're onto his camera and flash him at quite literally every single opportunity. You don't have much time to waste as Freddy is fast. Really fucking fast. I don't quite have the vocabulary necessary to describe how intense this night really is. And if you get bad Sparky spawns like I often did, you could easily spend hours on this night. I was lucky enough to only have it take me a single hour. But if you manage to control your nerves long enough to complete this night, we will have one final minigame to talk about. After completion, we get one final call from the phone guy. He very ominously tells us to enter the dining room. He says he wants to show us something. Upon entering the dining room, we're greeted by all 5 animatronics staring back at us. The camera to the dining room flashes, and we hear the phone guy, named Ralph, explain that the reason it flashes is so that you can take a screenshot of the camera. Ow! Oh! Fuck! See? That's why I told you to make it a boomerang. Ralph then used that image to post on his blog. He's been using these camera images for his blog all week, and we were the bait. One last goodbye is said, and the restaurant goes quiet. The gameplay of Freddy's Reanimated is incredible. There's no doubting that. This game, of course, has a custom night with 3 additional unlockable characters. The first of which being Bon Bon, who's actually a reference to the game Freddy's Web Adventure. Pretty cool. Occasionally, he will appear on your cameras. If you don't click him fast enough, he will disable all of them for the remainder of the night. The next character you can unlock is called the Hawk. He acts as a Phantom Chica-like character. He will periodically appear on the cameras, blocking the view, and if you don't turn away from him, he will kill you. Pretty simple, but in a game where the cameras are super important, this guy can be a big pain in the ass. Finally, the last character you can unlock is Sienna, by far the most cancerous of the Custom Night 3. She will occasionally block the clock next to your door, which somehow prevents time from passing. This is a Custom Night character that can drop the realism at this point. All you have to do is click her nose and she will go away and the time will continue to pass. Altogether, completing a Custom Night with these 3 additional characters is a torture I would never want to put myself through. But shout out to Dark Ryun who was able to pull it off, and whose footage you're seeing right now. I should mention that the Custom Night does have a secret ending, but I'll bring it up when I talk about the story of this game. Which, you know, we'll do right now. The story of Freddy's Reanimated is honestly one of the most surprisingly thoughtful pieces of writing I've ever seen in a FNAF fan game. It's not about murder, or purple men, or endless timelines that make my brain feel like fucking mashed potatoes. It's about being forgotten, and about what happens when something that used to bring people joy is left to rot and fade away. The entire game is built on this theme: nostalgia, decay, and the quiet horror of being erased from memory. Freddy's Reanimated takes place inside Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, a restaurant that's already dead by the time we get there. It used to be loved. Kids laughed, parents smiled, the animatronics performed, and everything was fine. Until it wasn't. Over time, the crowd stopped coming. The lights dimmed, the laughter stopped. The building was abandoned and left to gather dust for over a decade. No massacres, no missing children, just nothing. The kind of death most things really suffer. When the game starts, we're told the place is finally being demolished, and Ralph, the manager, hires a night guard to keep an eye on the place for the last few days. That's us. But before us, there was another guard, Mike Schmidt. Yeah, that Mike Schmidt. He worked one night, just one, and didn't make it out. In the demo of this game, we actually see what happened. Mike survives until 6 a.m. The power cuts, and Freddy himself storms into the office and literally bites his head off. No mystery, No cover-up. It's brutal. It's direct. And it sets the tone for everything that follows. When Ralph brings us in months later, he acts like none of that ever happened. He's casual, a little too calm, and gives us these half-baked instructions that sound like he's either high out of his mind or hiding something. He keeps asking us to do these little tasks: fix the power, upload old files, check the cameras, all while brushing off the fact that the animatronics are moving. Every night, our character emails Ralph describing what they saw, and every night Ralph dances around the truth. He never says, "You're wrong," but he never says, "You're right" either. It's like he knows what's going on, but refuses to say it out loud. Then, finally, on the last night, Ralph tells us a story he's been dying to share. He says that back in the 1940s, archaeologists discovered a cave covered in human handprints. The people who found it were haunted by those same handprints for the rest of their lives. Like the dead were reaching out just to remind them they were still there. And Ralph thinks the same thing is happening to Freddy's. He believes the animatronics are moving because they refuse to be forgotten. That after sitting abandoned for over a decade, their anger, this pure, desperate rage, literally reanimated them. Not out of vengeance, not because of possession, but because of memory. Because they were once loved and then left behind. It's such a fascinating take. The idea that these animatronics aren't evil, they're afraid. Afraid of fading away. It's one of the first FNAF fan games I've seen that makes you feel sorry for the monsters chasing you. They're not killing you because they want to, they're killing you because they don't want to disappear. After you survive the final night, Ralph asks you to head into the dining room. He says he wants to show you something. When you enter, all 5 animatronics are standing there, waiting for you. It's one of the eeriest visuals in the entire game. Completely still, completely silent. Ralph activates the camera flash, and the screen freezes in a burst of light. Then he says,
I finally figured out what the flash button does. It lights up the room so that you can take a screenshot of the camera you're looking at. I finally have more recent images from my blog.
And that's when it hits you. The whole time, we weren't protecting the building, we were the bait. Ralph was using us to get the footage and screenshots he wanted for his personal blog, to turn the remains of this haunted restaurant into online content, the same way we, as players, chase nostalgia. Ralph chases it too. He's obsessed with documenting something that's supposed to be gone. After everything, the building is demolished. Ralph's posts about it online, sparking renewed interest in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place. People remember it again. The animatronics, those same restless spirits that didn't want to be forgotten, finally get what they wanted. They are remembered. And then they rest. The player gets their paycheck. The story ends not with a scream, but with silence. It's such a powerful way to close things out. Freddy's Reanimated isn't about surviving animatronics. It's about the fear of being erased. It's about what happens when the world moves on and leaves you behind. Even the custom night ending reflects that idea. Mike Schmidt's death is written off as a bear attack. Just a tiny headline, nothing more. And Freddy Fazbear himself, lying in the rubble, surrounded by everything that used to be alive, now just forgotten scraps of metal. For a game that's meant to be realistic, it's ironic that the story is one of the most human I've ever seen in this genre. Freddy's Reanimated isn't just the most realistic FNAF game ever made, it's one of the most real stories the community has ever told. Would you like to hear one last interesting piece of information I have to share? There is a secret in this game up until this point. As far as I'm aware, nobody has ever found it, and I can guarantee you've never seen it before. A secret so rare that the chances of finding it exceed luck that no human has ever had. And I want to thank City, the author of the FNAF Fan Game Wiki, for providing me with this information and allowing me to share it with you guys. We know that Michael got bitten and killed by Freddy, but did you know you can actually see Michael's corpse inside of the game? You just have to be incredibly lucky. To start, you must have already beaten the main game. No custom night completion is necessary. Then you have to restart the game from night 1. Before completing night 3, you will have to die at least 5 times. Then, upon beating night 3, when entering the hallway, there's a 1 in 10,000 chance to see the corpse. Slight gore warning, by the way. This is probably the most realistic looking gore I've ever seen in a FNAF game. If you can pull all of that off and get more lucky than any human on Earth, this is what you will see in the hallway. Truly some of the scariest shit I've ever seen. But there you have it. That's everything as far as I'm aware that Freddy's Reanimated has to offer. Overall, this game is one of the coolest experiences I've ever had since starting this channel. I don't think this game is nearly my favorite. I think I like Juniors and Banshee just a little bit more, but it's definitely close. The atmosphere, the sound design, the game design are all borderline perfect works of art. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think that this game is actually just fucking horrible? Let me know in the comments below. In my Too Many Nights video, I asked you guys who your favorite character to play as was, and my favorite answer was none of them because I couldn't find a comment that answered the question. But I did find a lot of comments upset with me because I choose to say retarded. Subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate it a lot. Thank you to all of my Superfan channel members, you guys are the rizziest. I've been Dexter, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya!